Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3, number 18. It's already been a good week, and it's when's the show gonna Wednesday? It's Wednesday technically. I'm like talking in the future tense. It's Wednesday. It's not at all Tuesday evening. But it's already been a pretty good week in terms of like game announcements, release. Like it's been a fun couple of weeks now since the last episode. So I'm actually pretty excited for the show today. Of course, Ryan with me here. How you doing, Ryan?
Very good, very good. You're excited, John. You're excited.
Yeah. Well, a game got announced that I've been talking about for weeks now because they've done a terrible job like teasing it, or like they've wanted to announce it for so long. And of course, the gaming industry is all secretive and trying to be all like hype it up quietly. And people were just saying what this game was for a while, so it is fun to finally see it get shown. So I'm excited. Some good stuff happening there. Got another Game of the Year potential nomination, already popping up. Two of them up now, and we're just now starting March. So 2025 seems like it's shaping up to be a year for game releases.
You are referring to Split Fiction reviews just dropping and doing extremely well.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was part of your topic list. I didn't want to just be like, hey, look at Split Fiction. Just throwing stuff around here.
We got a lot. I didn't put Split Fiction on there, but yeah, the reviews look very good. Very
90
good.
It's 91 for like the weighted average on Metacritic or whatever, but it's 91 on the PS5, and then the other two are Xbox PC are 92. So it's like somewhere between 91 and 92 if you really want to look at it that way. But hey, Hazelight, man, they keep coming through. They just get better and better, it seems like, with each release.
I was surprised by the length of time. It was like they're saying it's around 12 to 14 hours or something.
That's pretty good for a like strict
long
co-op game.
I was like, well, that seems really long. I feel like A Way Out was less than 10 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really get spent. I didn't finish It Takes Two, so I don't even know how long that game is.
It's not. I don't think it wasn't that long.
Yeah,
Split Fiction seems like it is. What I mean, they said it's like in terms of their production budget and stuff, it's higher than anything they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that intrigues me is people who were playing it early for a review period said that there were some like genuinely interesting and new mechanics, like very creative gameplay they'd never experienced before there.
I mean, we got to start listening to Joseph Ferris. I mean, he did say very directly, very bluntly, there's some cool new shit in this game. That might be something he said verbatim. So
he also said that he would ship you a friend today.
Yeah.
Did you see that he's like packing up Geek Squad people in the Acme wooden crates, like drilling screws and shipping them to people? So
yeah, the man's unhinged. So
yeah, that it seems cool. And like the cross-platform friend code, I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
Did they? It wasn't cross-platform for the prior entries, right? Just the regular friend pass on the same platform.
I believe so. Yeah, they made a big deal about it. I'm like, wow, really? So if you have it on PlayStation, you get a friend code, give it to the person on Xbox, and it'll still redeem there.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. They clearly they just like making the games. They're not like, how do we get the microtransactions now out of this game? So
well, that's what's notable too, is that he like I think I again mentioned this. I'm sure he said it in prior interviews or something, but like, we're private, don't want to be acquired, don't want to be public. We just want to double down, focus on what we're doing, and have fun with it.
Yeah, it seems like EA is like backing them completely, which why wouldn't you if they're turning out this quality of stuff? It's going to just look good for your own like catalog of titles.
Mm-hmm. I can really value that approach though. Like, we want to be private. Oh yeah, we'll find our own publisher every time, which seems to be EA giving them a lot of leverage, but they're in a pretty good spot. I'm happy for them.
I'm sure there's a lot of companies right now, after seeing the last two entries, that are like, we'll fund the next one for you. Just tell us. And like, I guess EA's like, now we got it. We'll cover it. So
I do wonder if it's like a situation of like, oh, it's just more publishers wanting to approach Hazelight, but it's not like Hazelight is this example of like, you can do a co-op game with a bigger budget. And so like a startup could like try and pitch that. It's like, well, no, you're not Hazelight. It's like there's only room for one studio to do this.
Yeah, so that's I mean, it's impressive stuff because the first time we saw him was when he went on stage and was going crazy in front of Jeff Keighley, and now look at him. He's won Game of the Year with It Takes Two, and Split Fiction set up nicely right now.
So I do imagine you were referring to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, yes?
Yes. See, I was trying not to mess up the flow of your topics and stuff. That's why I was being, trying to be dramatic and like and trying to shroud mystery over the net. Yeah, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. Yes, I'm very excited for that.
A little bit coy there. Yeah, I mean we can mention that real quick. Well, what'd you think of that trailer?
I mean, I think the thing with the trailer is it's expected what it was going to look like. I figured it'd be 1 and 2 look that same kind of visual clarity, which it does. Same gameplay too. They already said it's going to be the same controls and the physics and feel of it and everything. But you're going to have all the stuff from 3 and 4 in terms of the levels and the soundtracks. And it seems like they're building off of it further to where they're mentioning like create a goal with something. So I'm not sure how deep that's going to go for the customization in like the community side, but they'll have New Game Plus. They're going to have Doomslayer apparently is one of the secret characters that you get, I guess, as the digital deluxe and up versions, but there should be other hidden characters in there as well that they like. I wonder if they'll do the Neversoft eyeball. That was one that was kind of weird. I don't know if they can do that or not. I'm not sure where the licensing is on any of that stuff there, but they should have some other stuff they can do. I think it looked great though. I'm the thing that I'm most excited about is the idea that it seems Microsoft is serious about continuing this franchise, because it's not even Vicarious Visions or I guess Blizzard Albany doing it. They brought in Iron Galaxy to do this one. So it seems like they're thinking, okay, if we can't use Blizzard Albany to do this because they're doing Diablo, we're going to find someone else to do it. So this seems good for Microsoft to keep that rolling, and Tony Hawk seems to like doing it.
You think not to, I guess, speak so soon on this, you think from here they go into Underground?
I think Underground 1 and 2 is up next. I think they want to complete that. So I know there's a lot of Tony Hawk games out there, and someone's gonna be like, "Oh, American Wasteland was it." There's like that feeling of the classics, that a lot of people look back on that like made the foundation for the series, and that had to have been 1 through 4, and then at least Underground 1.
I was gonna say
2 was a whole thing too, but that's like the foundation for a lot of people today.
I feel like Underground 1, maybe 2 is sort of where like there's that defined period of it's like heyday, and then everything after that is sort of like really hit or miss,
It's very scattered after that. Yeah. So I feel like they get Underground 1 and 2 done, and my thought is that they take a shot at a new one, a Tony Pro Skater 6.
Yes, and I like an entry where they like actually try.
Yeah, 5 was really bad.
5 was awful.
That like killed the franchise basically. Yes. So
yeah.
I would like to see that, and I don't think it has to be a $70 crazy high budget game. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, that kind of style is really fun. And I think it works for what the franchise is trying to be. And if they come in now at a $60 price point and it's on Game Pass, so it's $10 cheaper than like the $70 high, AAA budget style. I think they can do some cool stuff there within reason. So I would like to see it.
For sure. Especially because, this game's standard is $50. That deluxe version you mentioned, that'll come in at $69.99. And then just like every other publisher out there, they're doing a very big collector's edition with 3-day early access, and that's 130 big clams.
Do you see what it comes with?
It's
deck.
Yeah,
you actually have the deck.
Yeah,
they ship it to you.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's always a way to sort of get a higher average spend per customer on this. So
they did that with the first one too. They had a deck and they shipped it out, and it was like a limited edition birdhouse one. Same thing here. So that's fun. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure many people remember that time where skateboarding was like crazy popular, right? X Games, he does like the 900, everyone's freaking out, but only like 20% of us could actually skateboard. A lot of us were like, this looks really fun. And then you try to skate for like, wow, that's really hard to do. And I don't think I'm going to dedicate my life to this. So I'll just play the games.
Well, I was one of those kids. Like the games exposed me to the actual sport. And then I bought a deck, and I was a skate kid for a little bit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was out there, John. Now, I wasn't good. Not even a little bit. I did stick with it for a few years though. So,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Most people, if they can just do a kickflip, they're happy. Like that's it. That's all they need.
Well, really, you want to start with ollies, and I think that's where most people kind of checked out of the hobby.
Everyone just wants to be able to flip the board around at least one time, do something because it looks cool, and that's all. And they're good.
That's the problem. You can't do that without the foundation of mastering an ollie. And most people want to jump to the whole board flipping thing. It just doesn't really work out like that. You got to ollie first. Got to ollie.
Drop into the 50-foot half pipe immediately. Not even just learn to ollie. Go for deep end. Throw into the deep end.
Hey,
I'll be picking this game up day one. I probably will because there's a demo as well in June if you pre-order. I'm gonna figure out a way to get that demo.
Yeah, it comes out July 11th. PS4, PS5.
I will figure out a way. I'll make some calls at Activision.
Oh boy, he's gonna get on the horn.
I'll make some calls at Microsoft. I don't know. I'll figure out something.
All right, let's move into some proper news stories here. We've got our standard PS Plus.
I need to interrupt you. What's the Rebirth update?
Oh, my Rebirth update. Oh, I'm in the Coral region.
Okay.
So that's
you really trying to 100% each region before you leave.
Pretty much, yes. I do not move on to a main mission until all those check marks are on the page, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Okay.
Doing more Queen's Blood. Doing some Queen's Blood out there. Looking for all the hidden, I don't know, locations and everything, all the bullshit, all the mini games, all of it. So I'm thinking if I keep up this pace, John, if I keep up this pace, I will be done by this calendar year. By the end of it.
Hey, there you go. It was a year of Rebirth. I'm like 5 trophies away from the Returnal Platinum.
Oh, that's right. So is it just the still the glyphs that you're looking for, or?
And the scout logs. There's like a couple of scout logs that aren't there, and I basically have to keep going through and just trying to get them to spawn. But I will say in the second area, the Red Sand Desert area, that's where I'm missing the most glyphs right now for some reason. It's that one. And I look, there's like 20 of them there. I'm like, oh, why are there so many?
I think my last glyphs were in like the final biome. It took forever to show up.
That one I got done quick. I was shocked. Everything just showed up for me when I was running through it to do like you go through it once and you go through it again after getting the pieces to then get the true ending.
Yeah.
But that when I was going through to do that, I kept going through rooms like, oh, there's a scout log. Oh, there's a glyph. Oh, there's no scout log. And I looked, I'm like, I'm only missing one glyph right now.
What? You're playing post patch, like where they just made all that stuff easier. I'd almost want to I almost want to start on a new like PSN ID and just see like what it's like. Because it really, I probably had 20 extra hours thrown on my platinum just running through and just trying to find what I was missing.
I checked the hours. I think I'm at like 63 hours right now in it.
Okay, well, the platinum took about 60 for me. So
okay,
I guess you're saying in that ballpark.
Yeah. So I'm close. I'm close. I have to do like one daily challenge or something too, like to run that one. And that's it. Yeah. So close. Simple. I'm close. The platinum's incoming.
All right. I'm proud of you, John. Proud of you. I don't say that often. All right, we have PS Plus Essential March games revealed, and boy, oh boy, this one's a doozy. Dragon Age: The Veilguard, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Cowabunga Collection, and Sonic Colors Ultimate. Dragon Age came out 4 months ago.
I only need 4 more trophies for the platinum in that one too.
Is that right? This guy's the king of I'm almost done.
Yeah, I know. I do that a lot. I think that Geofield Chronicle, I still just need 1 trophy for the platinum in that, and I've left it ever since.
The king of I have this many left and then doesn't do it.
There's probably like 12 platinum trophies that I'm like 16 trophies away from right now, like across these different games, like total cumulative.
I don't know how you live like that.
I need to start taking pictures and just posting them on Twitter of like the trophy count.
Of the percentage, yeah,
just to annoy people. One day I'm going to go through month. I'm going to go through and just get randomly like 12 platinums in a week for no reason. Just go through and get them all done.
I mean, you can do it.
Dragon Age. I mean, the platinum isn't hard in Dragon Age. I will say that it's basically you play the game and you'll eventually get it. it is interesting. People saw that go in and they're like, wow, that was fast. You don't really strive for your game to go into a third-party subscription service, not even the premium tier. This is like the essentials tier. It's like
Yeah.
the basic one. I don't think it was still cheap, quote unquote, for Sony, but I feel like it was discounted quite a bit, like from the publisher angle of let's get this into our service. So Sony probably moved on it because it's like, oh, well, we can get a game that's 4 months old into our essentials tier and make it feel quote unquote more valuable than if it showed up a year and a half later.
That was my immediate thought, was like, this is big. I can't picture this still being like this was like a hefty sum for them, probably. Like, this was not a cheap deal, but it, surely it must have worked out between both parties, because the game clearly didn't do what they were looking for this thing to do. So
I have to assume EA's in let's break even mode right now for this game, and that chunk that Sony gave them, I don't say it got in there, but it was like, okay, we can kind of start seeing the light right now for like digging your way out of that hole. And I feel like it's probably going to show up on Game Pass probably in a month or two, and that might be the thing that just gets them to the break even mark for this. So they can just kind of just get away from Dragon's Field. See if maybe down the road it sells couple million more copies years and years from now, and then like, okay, we at least made something from it.
Well, surely the sales surely must have just fell off a cliff. Most games do after launch, mind you, but like, I mean, it must have been like on life support after that first week or something, where it's just like there's just zero movement on sales for this game.
Yeah, they were already discounting it. It was down like they discounted like 40% or something during the Christmas season. Later when it came out. Yeah, so they were already playing around with discounts and stuff. So the writing was kind of on the wall. It had a decent enough surge when it first came out, and then you could see it just drop off of all these charts, just disappeared. So
now you did say before, though, you feel this game will age somewhat gracefully, and the conversation around it will be better over time.
Yeah, I think with a game like this, in 10 years, people will forget like the moment of time now with the discourse online around this game, and someone with like fresh eyes will play it. Like, oh, it's a fun 7 or 8 out of 10 game. Okay. Like, those games can still be very fun for people. And it's also a lot easier to, I would say, give it higher marks when you buy it on a Steam sale for $10 as opposed to I spent $70 on this game, so my expectations are through the roof. If you just catch the game, like Dragon Age Inquisition is $8 you can find it all the time on sale, and I buy it at $8. I'm like, okay, yeah, this game is really fun because it costs less than a number one large at McDonald's or something, so that's it's easier when the games get cheaper, and this is one that I think people in time will look back on and be like, oh, this is a fun little $15 7 out of 10 game.
Well, that's what I'm curious about, right? Because it's like, okay, well, now this thing is going to be exposed to like substantially more people. So I wonder if it's, going to have that slight U-turn of like so many people playing the game and going, oh, you know what? I had a great time with it because it came with your subscription. So you're not, it's no financial investment that you're really doing outside of just giving your time to the game.
Yep. I think that's a bit PlayStation Plus, Game Pass especially kind of creates that illusion of free, quote unquote, for a game. Yeah. But I think it also makes it easier for people to be somewhat lenient on the game when they're playing through it. Like, well, I didn't technically buy the game at full price, so if there's this or that drawback, it's like, yeah, it's fine. I just downloaded it. I hit the button to download. I didn't spend. I hit the button to send them $70.
Have your time with it, then put it down if it's not for you.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no real risk then.
TMNT is really fun. That Cowabunga collection.
Good game. Yeah. Highly recommend it. Although they're classic games from when we were much younger and optimistic, but it's a very good entry.
Collection. With rewinds, makes a lot of those games very palatable. I will say that.
Good couch co-op game.
Good platinum. About 2 hours with an exploit.
Is it really?
Indeed it is.
Wait, hold on. Is it like okay, so how many trophies were there?
You know how there's like in the Cowabunga collection, you can like fast forward, like you can watch a playthrough. It's like in the game, like the game has built-in pre-done playthroughs. Mm-hmm. So you can like watch the playthrough, fast forward to the end of the game, take control of that playthrough, and then roll credits, and then you get the trophy for it.
Are you serious?
I swear to God. That's how it cuts down on the time to platinum.
Is that how you did it?
What? So I did this in 30 Platinums Part 3. I just
Mhm.
looked at the guide and it was like 2 hours, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They're a bunch of like Game Boy games and Nintendo. I mean, I could easily just jump into this and knock it out in maybe 3 hours or something. I'm playing like one of the Game Boy games, and I'm like, this is taking forever. Like, I'm not even close to done. Then I went back to the guide and I'm like, oh shit, it's 2 hours with the exploit. So I'm like, oh, well, this could either be like a 20-hour platinum, or I could just cut it down in 2 hours.
So
So
I can, in an hour and 50 minutes, get all but 3 trophies and leave it forever.
yes, if you're looking to add to that incomplete list of yours,
There it is.
it's very simple, very simple.
That's interesting though, that it's like that easy of a platinum. Good to know.
Yeah, just by association of that like built-in like playthrough mechanic that they've got in there. I did want to also briefly mention, because I've been getting a lot of comments, people asking about this PS Plus extension from the PSN outage. It sounds like that's now going out, or it's already like your account's been credited. So like a few people are asking me like, hey, my account doesn't have the 5-day extension yet. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
How will I know if I just auto renew anyway? I don't know what that does for me.
Well, you would at least like if you knew what day your account was going to lapse over, you should have that date. Now you can check it and verify that it's 5 days longer. So just more of a little PSA basically, because I guess Sony did not immediately send out those 5 days, and a few people were indeed checking their account statements, going like, "Hold up, son, where's my 5 days? It's not here yet."
So they're gonna charge me 5 days later now then?
Correct. They will charge you 5 days later. They'll take your money
now.
Well, here's the thing: legitimate concern for some that like if they subscribe to PS Plus during the days of play sale or Black Friday, and they want it to lapse over during the next sale, and if it pushes you 5 days outside of the sale, like that, you actually kind of got boned on that.
Sony's playing 4D chess out here.
I think here's the thing is, I'm sure they were always playing 4D chess, because they would clearly know you took the deal last year and they might not give your account the deal next year. So little bad news for you folks, but you probably were not going to be eligible for the following year, if I had to guess. We do have a PS Plus Extra game that had, if you remember this during the State of Play, they announced 2 games are going to go day one in a PS Plus Extra. Mm-hmm. So one of them was Blueprints, the architectural puzzle game that is confirmed for April 10th. So now we know that is going to launch day one in the PS Plus Extra, as a little reminder there. Usually with these day one PS Plus Extra launches, they don't always coincide with the monthly lineup. So April 10th would mean that the game just launches on PSN and it'll be available right away. You don't have to wait for the April Extra lineup. So just thought we'd also announce that. And then going into this story, we've got Sony adding a lot of new streamable games through PS Plus Premium. So this was reported by Cloud Dosage. They have a script that their site runs on a weekly basis to see if there's any new games that are whitelisted as streamable on PS Plus Premium. Because right now, Sony launched PS5 cloud streaming on the console. We're not talking about the titles that you can stream directly on PlayStation Portal, but just on PS5 directly outside of the PS Plus Premium game catalog. If you own certain games, as a premium member, you're allowed to stream them instead of installing them. So the point of the story is Sony apparently whitelisted 371 additional games. So now they're up to a grand total of 1,850 PS5 games that you can stream. So the most recent additions are some pretty big titles like Helldivers 2, Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza, Warhammer 40K. There's a lot of new titles on there. So they're up to nearly 2,000 games that you can stream from these new PS5 server blades.
So this is mostly for PS5 and PlayStation Portal.
Not the Portal yet.
Just PS5.
Yeah, because the Portal's
the Portal seems to have a growing list right now too. That's really quiet.
It's very quiet. I think it's only a little over 200 games, and that's like the very early beta period where like even that screen is just like a very basic sort of UI to play the few games that are on there. This is just like a fuller, deeper catalog that, mind you, nobody can like see this, right? Like you can just go through your game library and you'll probably notice that like it'll say play game or stream. And this would be under the collection tab. So not games that are installed. You can go to the collection tab, and that's all the the titles that are tied to your PSN ID. Either you bought them previously and they're not installed, or it's just a game that you've downloaded before from the game catalog, or it's a PS Plus game. You can go through your entire collection, and a lot of those games will let you just stream it immediately. But there's no category on the console where you can see these games as a list. It's just a sort of unknown list of, as it stands right now, 1,800 PS5 games that can be streamed.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that they have to run a script to even see this stuff. And I see those headlines pop up occasionally on more cloud games going in, and Sony doesn't make a big deal at all. They don't announce any of it. It's like they're quietly building towards an eventual announcement, maybe, of like, hey, this many games can be streamed now. And I mean, we see what they did with the Portal, where it has streaming games available. It does make me wonder if, like, clearly they have streaming as a big part of their business right now, because it's being integrated into their two systems, I guess, now. But it does make me wonder if they have plans for eventually like a PC launch at some point of, here's an app you can run and these games stream, kind of like with GeForce Now, where you can do that with your Steam games that are there. It still seems like Sony is looking for ways to continue reaching more and more people. TV integration, like that's something Microsoft did with Samsung and what LG now. I almost wonder if Sony's like, oh yeah, if you have your Bravia TV and it's enabled with this, you can sync up a DualSense and live stream. You can just stream your games from it if you want. So I do wonder if they're building this up to eventually have those kind of avenues, and they're quietly doing it currently with the PS5 just to get everything in line and make sure it all works right.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it. A very quiet way, because these are also these are the new Silver Blades, the PS5 ones that are like very playable. Like, no bullshit. You can, I mean, these games look good. They stream in 4K. If you've got at least like I think it's like 25 megabits per second down, which is not that hard to have access to, depending on where you live, highly dependent on that, obviously. But it's like these games are very playable, and they're up to nearly 2,000 titles in the PS5 library that can be played without you not realizing it. Most people don't even know they're up to this many now that are streamable. So yeah, it feels like a very sort of quiet building of the dike, and then they will eventually sort of start unlocking this deeper catalog on devices outside of PS5, because in the grand scheme of things, it's also kind of silly. Like, you don't almost always never need to stream a PS5 game on PS5.
Right.
The cool thing is when it's like on the Portal, so you don't have to connect to your remote PS5, your home console. Or in the case of, as you're saying, once they do TVs or PC or something, and this is an actually like decent experience. This isn't like 2014 when they were using PlayStation Now on a select few Bravia TVs and Samsungs. It's like, you could do it, and they were like advertising it and everything, but man, it sucked. It was bad.
Yeah, wasn't great.
These games are like actually playable. It's and they're quietly building it.
Yeah, that's just what I assume their direction is here. Use the PS5 just to make sure everything's working correctly and the quote unquote best experience right now for streaming. But then eventually open it up, maybe even through a web browser. You just fire up the web browser, and there you go. You're off and running. Of course, you would still need a DualSense controller. You would need a PlayStation Plus subscription. So all of that would work into Sony's monthly active user cap. I don't know if you saw the Steam number that got posted the other day of how many people were online at once on Steam. It was over 40 million people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I mean, in Sony's mind, they're like, oh, what if we had an app on Steam that was free to download, and it let people log into their PlayStation Plus account and they could just stream the stuff. They can't necessarily download or buy them from us yet, but they could stream them. And it's like a catalog of, so however many games on PlayStation Plus Premium, and you spend that kind of money per year. So I'm not sure with the PC market how they would respond to that, although GeForce Now does pretty well. People seem to subscribe to that quite a bit and talk highly of it. So maybe that's a path for them. Rather than even needing a launcher, they can go right to Steam with it as a free to download application. Yeah,
in a weird way, I don't know if like appreciate is the right word here. I still obviously prefer local play and owning everything, as most people know. Mm-hmm. But I find it very noteworthy that it's like nearly 2,000 games. Most people wouldn't even know. Like it's not very in your like again, like PS Now, it was a very commercialized thing of like it's on Bravia TVs, just use a like they were actually trying. Versus now it's like the experience is way better and they're just not really pushing it down anybody's throat. It's like it's there and you can do it and we're just going to keep building out this we're going to keep fleshing out this library, that the technology, and when we feel that shift is ready to happen, maybe that's when they'll sort of start to
make the move.
Yeah, make the move.
Maybe they do a thing where they package in at a store a DualSense and like a PlayStation Plus Premium for so many months again. Because I feel like they did like promotional things with that in the past, where you could get like and it was usually like the store that would do it. But I feel like Sony's done it before. Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of times where you get a controller and like a card or something. Yeah, so they've played around with that. I almost wonder if that's another thing they might think. It seems like the door's open for them if they want to do it. But maybe you're right. Maybe they're just quietly building, and then eventually, boom, announcement. It's now available on PC for however many games on Premium, or maybe if you own the game on Steam. See, I don't even know how that would work. That'd be tough. So I feel like it might just be premium, whatever the premium subscription offers and can stream. That's the library of games.
Let's move on to a new PS5 beta firmware. This is actually kind of old now at this point because it's a very minor firmware. So the change log is activities now display fully with cards, which it basically is like the window is a bit larger when you're displaying and looking at cards. That's like the biggest change here. They still say potential spoilers will still be hidden, which makes sense. They mentioned Unicode 16 emojis are now supported. Awesome. Can start doing that. And then there's new parental control and communication settings you can mess around with when it comes to user-generated content. So they're altering that a little bit. Very minor beta. There was no PS blog post about this, which they almost always do if there's like kind of new beta codes being sent out. So this time around, they really just like sent codes to people as a very quiet beta firmware. There's like really no big headline changes. You know what I mean?
I got in on this and I thought something was cool was going to happen, and then I didn't see a Mystic Ryan video pop about it, so I was like, okay, nothing's happening here.
It's such a minor firmware. I guess we could just also roll right into this, which is a more recent announcement, which is a beta program at PlayStation was announced, or the beta program at PlayStation. This is the name of a new initiative Sony's doing, which they describe this as a more consolidated way for people to participate in future betas across a range of PlayStation experiences. Sony says this can be on PS5, PC, or mobile. It could be for console features, a PlayStation mobile feature, play tests, pretty much anything. And if you're in the program, you could receive an invitation to a specific beta. You could opt in or out at your leisure, depending on what exactly they're going to invite you to. And it's open right now. Free to register. Anyone can do it as long as your account is in good standing. So no prior suspensions or anything like that. As long as you've got a PSN account, you can pretty much register for this. They also mentioned they're not going to take everybody in, obviously, but it sounds like this is a more, I guess, streamlined way to handle betas, because they've always had a beta program that you could register to, like express your interest to get those beta firmware invites that Sony has been doing. What I think is not like here's the weird thing, right? Now, of course, they'll always say this, which is that if you're in, it's an NDA. You're not allowed to share footage or anything like that for the beta that you're participating in. They did mention in the FAQ it's account specific, whereas before that was not the case. So if Sony sent out beta codes for PS4 or 5, whatever it is, they would almost always work on any account. It's just they would email it to people that were in the program. But like, I'll admit this is like what happens when I can sometimes get access to these things, because I never get invited to these goddamn things.
You don't? They send out like extra codes to people too, right? Give them like 5 codes or something.
Well, that's like the norm. Like that's one way they do it. Sometimes if they're testing out a feature that needs, like, let's say they're making changes to parties or game base or a new party chat feature. Well, you want a lot of people in to test that real use case. So usually they'll even tell the beta participant that this one code can be used up to 5 times, up to 20 times.
That's how I got into this recent one.
Well, so even if it's not that, the codes can still just be used by anybody. If it's a one-time use code, it can still be used by anybody. Doesn't matter what the PSN ID is, the account region. Like that's often how I can like prepare some of those beta uploads early or something, or the feature uploads or whatever I do. So in this case, they are saying point blank, this is account specific. So the codes that they give to you in this program are only for your account. To me, this reads as, yeah, we might be doing a lot more beta testing across various different sort of aspects of PlayStation hardware, because previously it's just firmware. That's all it is. You know, in this case, though, it sounds like they're maybe trying to get a firm grip on, you know, making sure this stuff doesn't get put out there too early or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, more tracking, like, because you have to sign up for it, as you mentioned. They can grab a certain amount of people. Whereas when they send those codes out, it feels like it's a free for all. Just people post codes online. Oh, it has like 5 uses. Go to town.
Yeah,
and they don't really know who's actually even in it. Then this to me is just a way for them to track a bit better and maybe get feedback easier. Because I feel like if somebody gets a code who isn't like signed up to get the code, probably aren't going to send any feedback. Really, they're probably just thinking, "Oh, cool, I get access to these new features that aren't out yet or made public yet. I'm just going to check it out." And I feel like the person who signed up is more involved, or at least in their mind should be giving feedback. So that to me, there's just a way for them to streamline and organize it a bit better.
I almost feel like there's this might be them getting a little bit aggressive on trying to lock down the presentation for betas. Yeah. Account specific's kind of not a massive deal, but it's a big deal enough to where they're making a genuine change to how betas worked on the console previously. Like that, the whole what's new section where the Explore tab, when it changed to what's new, and I had initially had access to it, and then everyone's like sharing the video and the screenshots and, you know, spraying it. I almost feel like they maybe want to start controlling that a little bit more, you know, and at that point penalizing certain IDs where they know they can track it back to that individual and start sending out, you know, either copyright strikes or something. I don't know. They almost never do those things, obviously, but I was looking at this whole beta thing. I'm like, so what's really the point of this? You were always doing betas on the console prior, but I don't know.
Now you can get in. You can get access now. There you go.
I won't. And I certainly,
I jeez.
I most certainly wouldn't want to be in it and then like risk, obviously, because I would want to showcase what's in like a new beta or something, but obviously you're never allowed to do that NDA wise.
Oh, they know you won't be able to control yourself. They already know.
Well, but like here, I mean, that was always in like the agreement. They never enforced it, but this to me reads like, oh, account specific. Maybe you guys are sort of, you know, tightening up the purse strings a bit, and you're kind of getting fed up with people sharing all the early
maybe
footage.
You pushed them over the edge, Ryan.
Maybe, I don't know. That's what I thought though. I'm like, it seems a bit weird because I don't know. They don't ever run betas outside of just standard console firmware. So maybe they are going to start doing it more often.
Dartboard in his office with your picture on it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, all I know is you might not be able to get videos from me covering the betas right away anymore. So,
what if you get a beta that completely changes the dashboard on your PS5, but then you realize you have to do a video that shows the dashboard on your PS5?
Yeah, I can't do. Well, again, ain't no shot I'm getting into this thing. It wouldn't happen.
To spite you, and they're going to change your dashboard every single time.
It wouldn't happen. They wouldn't let me in. I think I've only gotten in officially one time in like 10 years, I think.
Man, you getting like nothing from Sony, man. They won't even give you the access to the beta of like a dashboard or something.
No, that just doesn't happen.
People getting like sent the entire library of their accessories early, and Ryan's like, "Can I just get into this beta, please?"
I just want so I can get the video done early. I hate doing it last minute. All right. So should we even go over this? If you remember last week, we had the whole Shuhei Yoshida interview with Dean Takahashi, and like literally we filmed that, right? We filmed that conversation, and then like the same night, Kyle Moriarty over at Last Stand Media, he had an interview with Shuhei as well, and it was a good interview. It was a very small window though of like the Dean interview takes place. That one quote comes out about Jim Ryan and the Indies job, and It seems very weird that he had this ultimatum. And then within that small window where we filmed our episode, they also were able to do that interview, and Colin was able to ask directly about that question, which we even said, like, the next time Shuhei shows up somewhere, somebody's got to ask him about that. And it happened like immediately.
Yeah.
With probably one of the best people to ask that question too, or at least try and get an answer out of him. So I thought we would at least provide some context on that and do a small update. So basically what Shuhei answered, right? So Colin said, hey, what was up with that question? So Shuhei said that the Indies job was made for him. The context here very much is that Jim said, like, supporting Indies was important. They want to still focus on Indies. They want to support those developers, but directly addressing the ultimatum. It was just a matter of Jim wanting to bring in a fresh, younger team, since Shu and Sean were a part of that longer-standing PlayStation leadership. So, rounding out the answer, Shuhei said that Dean's article came out, and I guess he was really surprised by like that was the one thing people were like talking about a lot, and headlines were showing up. He said from his point of view, he didn't think badly of Jim. He just appreciated how Jim helped and supported the indie job for the last 5 years. So it sounds as though he didn't want to obviously like speak ill of Jim Ryan or anything. But I don't know. How telling is it that, like, it sounds like he was being real when he's like, I didn't think that was like a big deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a sport, like sports, for example. A team will bring in a new coach or a new GM, and they're like, we want to change all the other coaches and assistant coaches and the way it's run. Because we want to bring in our own people. And it's, as he mentioned, it's like, look, it was clearly a shift in direction and leadership at Sony around that time. And I was there for a while, and Sean left. Was he escorted out of the building? Maybe, but he's gone. And they decided they wanted someone like Herman Holst, for example, to come in. And I will say this, it sounds like they did make that indie position kind of as a place for Shu to go, but also he did mention they kind of needed it because it felt like they were losing touch a bit with the indies around that time. So at least the puzzle pieces fit. The way he still said it wasn't like, oh yeah, like it was very clear that it was kind of this or nothing. Like, we don't really have a place for you, so let's figure out something for you to do. And that was it. So at least they didn't kick him out completely. They were like, there's nothing for you here, you're out. It's like, the indies thing makes sense, let's do that. And he liked doing it. So
I did it for 5 years.
People are still not going to people aren't going to like Jim Ryan no matter what. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
It doesn't matter what Shu said there. Like, the mind is made up around Jim Ryan a while ago. So
it was an interesting answer though. He's like, yeah, that surprised me. I didn't think that was such a big deal. But it happens. It's, as you said.
Does he not know that people just don't like Jim Ryan? Like, is he like, people like Jim Ryan? Like, I don't.
I'm sure he knows. He's not the guy's not tone deaf. But no,
I don't know if I feel like I would have been surprised if that happened. Like, I don't. Clearly, he was, because he said it. Or maybe he said it and didn't realize. Oh wait, that didn't sound great necessarily when I said that, because we were even going through like, there's no real great way to interpret this right now with what was said here.
It doesn't. Nothing about it reads well. But like, here's the weird thing, right? Like, a lot of if you're at this really big organization and you've got a very sort of high ranking senior position, when you move people around, it's like, where would Shu or Sean go? Because you don't want to demote them. That's kind of demoralizing. I mean, it really can be a sort of very cutthroat sort of like, we have no other SVP role for you. We have no other like very big role for you to fill. Obviously, you're not going to like take a huge pay cut and go down. Like there's no lateral place for you to move. So it is kind of a cutthroat thing of like, we want a new team. You got to go. So it's
smack on Horizon. He's out.
Yeah, that's how it goes around there. Apparently,
that's it.
So there's the context. And you know what? I do believe him on the whole Indies thing, though. Clearly, they did stick to it for 5 years afterwards. I do hope that Shuhei's, because he mentioned this in the Dean interview. He's like, the point of my role was to get rid of my role. I sincerely hope there is that sort of, ingrained methodology that he left the company in the state that it was in when he walked away, which is because he was telling new hires, let's not forget about indies. Let's make sure we support these developers and they can thrive on our platform. I would really hope that he did. He was able to successfully instill that in the company before he left. So I do hope they didn't lose their way. As you know, now Jim's gone too. So with Herman and Hideaki at the helm, let's hope they don't have another falling out with indies.
Did he mention anything else about what was next for him?
He's just doing consulting. Indie consulting, basically. That's why he's like on the junket doing this like press tour, because he's just getting his name out there. Like, I'm available. Reach out.
Didn't see him on Mystic Ryan yet.
Well, I haven't even reached out to him. So, but I'm not. Well, for an interview, I'm not making an indie game, so I don't need consulting.
For an interview.
Maybe I could always give it a shot.
Hey. We didn't all have the iPad Nano in the background when the PS4 was being shown for the first time. Come on.
I had a PS3 back there too. I've done LTPS long enough to where the background has been a PS3, 4, and 5 now, 3 generations.
What episode are you on right now for LTPS?
6 something, 620 something.
There you go. Tell them that 620 something plus 1 is a big episode, and you want to memorialize it with a 30-minute interview.
I appreciate your support, John. That was a really long interview Colin had with him, though. He asked a lot of really good questions. Obviously, we can't go over all of it. I do want to mention one other thing that they touched on, though. So, of course, I brought up live service. Hey, what's going on with that? Live service games at PlayStation hasn't really been working out all that well. So we had a few things that Shuhei touched on and talked about. I thought it was definitely noteworthy. He did say he was the one who signed the Concord deal, which was funny. Originally, he signed it with Probably Monsters,
like the prototype.
Super, like it's not a gotcha, right? He signed it so early that it's still on the prior leadership that saw the game all the way through. But it was funny that like he did it. Sometimes we never know the exact timeline of like who signed what and then who saw it through the finish line. So we have the context there. We also learned Helldivers 2 was supposed to be a PS5 launch title, which that does line up with the presentation that Arrowhead did on the game, where they talked about how they got double the budget at one point and the game took like 4 years more to actually end up releasing. So that game was supposed to be a 2020 launch title. But as far as the live service thing goes, so Shuhei broke this down generationally. Really fascinating how he described this. So he said that before Kazurai, Sony corporate were managed by people with an electronics background. They didn't really understand video games. After Kazurai and then Kenichiro Yoshida came in, he made an effort to really understand the games business and be more involved with PlayStation. So having said that, it was around this time where PlayStation was being criticized for basically having no multiplayer or live service games. So Shuhei said directly that a lot of this came from investors because they love predictable and reliable revenue streams. So Shuhei suspects that when Jim got the CEO role, he had a talk with Sony corporate and live service was something they should try. And Sony, to their credit, gave a lot of new money to Asahi and Herman. They never asked to do less single player games, but to do that and now live service. This is pretty much like nearly word for word things I've been saying for the past 2 something goddamn years, maybe longer. So I don't want to be that guy, but I feel a little bit validated. I've always said like this was in clear view. Sony corporate gave them more money, never less money. Single player investment went up too. It's a breakdown you can see from the business segment briefings, which was from 2019 onward, or I think fiscal year 2020. You could see the chart, like the capital that Asahi received to make games shot up dramatically. So the bar is kind of misleading, where it looks like, oh, it's half single player and half multiplayer. But when you line up that bar with fiscal year 2020 and 2019, you're not realizing that the single player bar is actually still higher than years prior, where it was almost always that's what Sony was investing in. The point is, it's just like there's a fiduciary duty for SIE to, appease shareholders. They want live service. They tried it. Obviously, it didn't work out very well. They only had one successful game. But Shuhei described pretty much word for word what's always been said about their sort of live service output. What's interesting, too, is like he admitted, like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have done all these games because he wouldn't believe in it. he actually gave insight more into like why like when he was leading PlayStation first party, why didn't he try more of them? And he was of the mind where he felt like it was just so crowded, like there was just no point. Like when Call of Duty's so big, he just didn't see the value in trying to do another Resistance, another Killzone when they have the numbers, they see the telemetry. Why compete in that space? Just let that game do really well, and then let's do something else. So that was his methodology. You can argue if that was the right call or not, but like that's, it's just the kind of stuff where we don't hear that insight often. So I really appreciate Shu for telling us about that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like he would have been speaking from like a 2018 kind of view. Yeah. Sort of when he like looking at those kind of games, looking at Call of Duty and the live service. The thing with live service now is just it's harder than ever to break into, just because you have those footholds already there. The black hole games, the Fortnites, the Apex, the Marvel Rivals. Now that broke in, but as we've talked about before, clearly the intellectual property itself is doing a lot of heavy lifting, I'd say. But like there are already games that people have latched onto. Even you can say Call of Duty Warzone. Apparently that's having its own struggles right now. But just in general, it's tough to get into that sector and figure something out. Helldivers 2 was a great success for him. But as you said, 8 other games had to get canceled or failed in some way for us to get the Helldivers 2. So I assume I feel like they wanted at least 2 to work out, because you have 2 good live service games that you can hang your hat on. You're going to be okay going forward for the next several years. I feel like they're just having a hard time figuring out that second one. But clearly they thought it might have been Concord, and that didn't work.
Yeah.
But it's the interesting thing though is you said that they had gained more money for investment into first party, like single player games too, along with the live service stuff. Do you think it's because we hear about the live service stuff more, like the noise around that is just louder than the single player stuff they do? That kind of has people like feeling the way they are about their output right now, Sony. It's like there's definitely a lot of discussion of people like where are the games, when is Sony going to release more single player games, when's that cadence going to pick up?
Yeah, it's kind of just circles back to to me it's always like a problem that everybody has. Like games just don't come out that often anymore. It's the PS4 onward issue of game X, Y, and Z takes 6-7 years to make minimum. Mm-hmm. How do you work? There's no other way to work around that outside of like, you just need more studios. Like It's just, there's just simply no getting around it. So like, I'll still argue, like, look at the first few years of PS4, launch a line to PS5, and it gets into like a stupid list war thing of like, oh, well, this doesn't count because it was cross-gen. This doesn't count because it's on PC now. But, outside of that obvious bullshit, if you look at like titles they've published that they consider first party, it's arguably stronger than PS4 was. PS4 is where this like really became a problem as far as like how long it takes to make and ship a game. There's no universe at this point where it kind of goes back to PS3 where you have 3 Uncharted and a Last of Us from Naughty Dog. It's just not going to happen anymore. So if we're comparing it to 4, I think the output is there, but it's just a lot of noise surrounding the initiative of doing live service, and it's sort of compounding with every single failure and this idea that they're not releasing games. It's like a lose-lose scenario. Every circumstance doesn't really look good for them.
I still think you're going to run into that situation of you could have all the money in the world, but you only have so many people to make a game, and you have like a one game studio like Bend or Blue Point, and we hear about the situations there, and like you could have given them double the money, but they don't have the people to make 2 games at once.
Sure,
it's like you just got to restart, and obviously there's going to be a gap at some point where we're like, well, I guess that might have been where Blue Point was, or maybe that was where Ben was going to release, and instead they sign on a third party to slot in there, like a Stellar Blade or something like that. So that's eventually that'll become at least somewhat noticeable, probably years from now, maybe towards the end of this generation. But that's the biggest thing. It's like all the investment, all the money is there, but it's like we gotta find the people to make multiple games at one studio to figure this out.
Well, it's like that's how they tackle it, right? I mean, if you, let's say you take out Stellar Blade and Rise of the Ronin, how bad does that year look? Like
Yeah, that's true.
that's how they're filling the portfolio out. It gets like silly when you do the whole list war thing, because you can look at titles they've published that they consider first party. They're they're trying to address the issue. There's really no other way to do it outside of like just hire talent seeking people and go out there and find games to sign, because first party's busy doing all these things that are just taking a long time. And so
Yeah.
it's a really weird sort of like roadmap of managing first and sort of second party studios titles that in second party. What's funny is that Colin or Shuhei clarified this in the interview, but to them, a second party game is really just it's a first party game, even if it's in an external studio. Excuse me, they still consider that a first party game. But I digress. It's just managing all this stuff on what is now these super long roadmaps of like, oh, we think this is going to be done in 3 years. How can we arrange that? How do we make sure we fill in these gaps that it's so far out? Like there's like a sort of hidden timetable here that Herman's looking at of games expected in the 2030s. Like it's kind of insane when you think about it like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why, because if Bend or Blue Point are restarting and they're like, we're gonna do this in 5 years, like, wow, we really are talking about 2030 right now.
Yeah. And it's like, oh man, well, what do we do for like, well, not E3, but what do we do for Summer Game Fest 2023 or 2032 or some shit like that? It's that's how far out these things are nowadays. It's a really tough thing for them to deal with.
You think if Blue Point instead moved to a remake or something, remaster, one of those in between kind of games, you think they'd get it out faster? So it's like maybe we can have this thing done in 2028 or something.
I mean, they surely could probably turn something around that fast if they go back to something like that. But I don't know. They said they wanted to do original work. I'm very curious as to where they go from here. If it is kind of a firm, because as we've clarified before, Sony doesn't, expressly tell their studios what to do. It's them pitching ideas to Sony and then Sony approves them. So will Blue Point feel the pressure to go back to remasters or remakes and pitch that? Will they try and pitch a new thing? No clue where that's going to go. No clue.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe Sony Santa Monica shows up with their game this year and we get a few other announcements. And that's the thing. There are games out there that they can show again or put like Wolverine being an example, right? They could do something with that. And all of a sudden, I think throughout this year as we go, we could get to a point where we look back, we're like, man, remember when we thought there weren't that many games or we're waiting for stuff, that now there's a whole roadmap in front of us to close out the year, or close out the generation. Kind of feels like we're at that point in the generation, like we were with the PS4, where in like the last 2 years, it was just all these big time games that clearly they had been working on for the majority of the generation coming out. So I kind of feel like we're getting to that point for the PS5. So, I mean, I'm crossing my fingers looking for a big 2026 and 2027 from Sony to then roll into their PS6 launch, but we'll see. This would be the year, I think, to start setting that in motion anyway.
Well, in other news, we do have some insight into one of those canceled live service games that we just heard about, the Twisted Metal project. This was
that's another one. It's another one. Where was that? Where do you think that gap was?
they like when it was expected to come out?
Yeah.
Well,
you think it would have been out by now if like everything just went along according to plan? Do you think we'd have it or it wouldn't be out yet?
I don't know. I guess they would have liked to have it come out like sometime around the TV show, but like this was like, I think it was Herman or either Assad already talked about this, but it's like we would love to line it up with the PS production stuff. Usually that's not the case, so they've been pretty firm on the idea of like, if we can line it up, great. If we can't, no big deal. This game, I mean, it was in development at Lucid Games initially. I think it was a different team too. So not like the exact same team that was doing Destruction All-Stars, or maybe it was that team that rolled right into this. I have no idea. They had this game, then it moved over to Firesprite. That's when it was canceled. So the news here is that we had a developer's online resume discovered, and they had some very early screenshots of this game. It was Project Copper. That's what it was codenamed, Project Copper. And it was described as a battle royale with third-person shooting outside of the vehicles, in addition to vehicle combat. And the screenshots are like very early, sort of like walking, like polygons, basically just sort of basic mesh models and things like that, shooting each other and things like that. But I don't know. What do you think of this, John?
I think they pitched it as Fortnite with cars with guns on top of them or something. Like, let's do Twisted Metal Fortnite. I feel like that's how they got it through the door, because the way you're like describing a battle royale Twisted Metal game where you get out and it's third person shooting, like Fortnite. I mean, that's, I feel like if this would have been like 2018, like when it was time for the pitch process, maybe even like earlier than that, when it was time for the pitch process back then, if you just put Fortnite anywhere in that pitch, it probably was going through. Like the way it sounds right now with that eventually would have looked at it and been like, is this really gonna work? Because Fortnite is like ingrained in the. We see so many live services come and go. We just saw Multiverses leave, come back, and now it's gone again, and the studio's gone. So like it's the live service game is rough, man. That is a rough brutal sector. It is cutthroat, cold-blooded, is crazy. So I feel like they just said this isn't gonna. No, we're not even dealing with this. It's just I feel like once it left Lucid and went to Fire Sprite, they kind of already knew. But
yeah, I'll say the thing. Like they must have like wanted this to. They must have been like, okay, well, Lucid, that didn't work out. Destruction All Stars. Let's give it to Fire Sprite. Maybe that's where it can have this new lease on life. And it was still just like, oh no.
They probably looked at that and said, "You really want Fortnite with car?" Like they probably knew as soon as it came in. Like, oh, really? Okay.
So like, to be fair, Battle Royale, that's what Twisted Metal always was. So that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
The other thing is that Destruction All Stars did have that hook. The hook was it's a car combat game where you also have this like parkour on foot element, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I didn't care for the game. I'm sure a lot of people didn't. But
the hook was supposed to, like, it was a car combat game where you didn't have anything to do combat with. There was no guns on the car, but they were like, "All right, guys, destroy each other." And you're like, "Okay, I'll crash into you."
Yeah,
I'll crash into you again.
Well, I'm trying to remember what was the point of the on foot element? Do you remember? Because they would like you get on foot and then you would like parkour across like obstacles and collect stuff, and so I don't really remember what they were trying to do with that.
You would like eject out of your car. You could do that, and then you're right. There were collectibles on the ground, and I feel like it just worked to power up your meter, and then you would just bash into people with your car from like turbo. Just it felt like a very incomplete Twisted Metal game, actually, to a degree. Now I think about it, because everybody looked at that game and played it, and they were like, "Man, there really needs to be rocket launchers or some kind of weapon that attaches to this car," and it just wasn't there.
Well, I mean, they laid the foundation. That was clearly going to be put into this Twisted Metal game,
but it looked all goofy too, like where it was trying to be that the millennial Zoomer Ubisoft game with the way the characters looked and stuff, it's like, okay,
with destruction. No,
destruction, the character models and like all the stuff they were doing there. It was the Fortnite aesthetic, right? And it's like, oh, okay. So Twisted Metal, much more vicious and dark. Yes, that would have been cool.
I do remember a lot of job listings for this game, like when it was still in active development. They would like say, we're looking for third person shooting sort of experience, or not experience, but like, this is what you'd be working on, is third person shooting. And it was like, well, this is the Twisted Metal game, right? So why is there? Yeah.
Would there have been like a big bus that would have dropped all the people off on an island or into an arena for Twisted Metal? I'm picturing them basically just copying Fortnite.
It wouldn't be that on the nose, John. You got to give them some credit.
I don't know.
It probably would have looked like Twisted Metal, but the game has to have that sort of new hook to it. Oh, look, Sweet Tooth. Look at him. He's out jogging now. He's got an AK on him. Look at him. It's clearly where they were going.
It feels like one of those situations where they saw the moment in time, and then the live service game just took so long to develop, they missed their window. And there's like, okay, maybe not the third person shooter battle royale game then with Twisted Metal. And that was it. Unfortunate, because if they had taken maybe we didn't see it. If it was more like an arena based multiplayer with some single player elements, and it came out as not a $70, maybe like a $40 game, maybe it would have worked still. I don't know. The live service thing, man, it's so tough. Even if you have an established IP, it's not guaranteed.
Well, we don't know why it was canceled.
True.
Could they not figure out a gameplay loop? Was it not fun?
Let's be real.
What was the issue?
You know what the problem was. Let's be real. It's that there was probably not a great way to monetize the thing.
You think it's the monetization that stopped them?
I feel like it keeps coming down to that. I mean, Shuhei said in that interview that the Last of Us Online game was really good, but they didn't want to put a bunch of time really into developing it post-launch because they wanted to do Intergalactic. But I still think the idea there is also we have to keep figuring out ways to monetize this thing for it to make sense and stand upright. And if that loop's not there, then what are we doing with this live service thing?
It would be a little strange if Twisted Metal came out, right? And let's say it worked and it was successful. And then there was that pressure of like, okay, so what do we do for season 2 and 3? And it's like, well, this is an existing IP. So character wise, where does it go? It goes the way that every other IP has been going, which is you start getting goofy and all of a sudden you've got Taylor Swift on the back of the ice cream truck. And
my gosh.
Fucking SpongeBob coming in and, you know what I'm saying? They're doing crossovers.
So here's the thing I don't get with this whole, there's so much pressure to do that with these multiplayer games. What happened to the days of, wow, we sold 10 million copies. What should we do for the sequel? Why does it got to be, wow, we sold 10 million copies? What do we do for season 2? Like, why we got to do that? Why can't you just move on to the next? Like Helldivers, if Helldivers 2 stopped content right now, wouldn't matter. Game highly successful. They could move on to Helldivers 3. In fact, back in the day, that's what they would do.
I think we're old heads, John, because there's content drops for Helldivers 2 and people are excited and they jump back in. And I've seen commentary surrounding how Arrowhead's going too slow with content drops. And they're like, I'm ready to put this game down. Arrowhead's not keeping me entertained enough. It's a different world out there.
But this is the problem though, because the demand for the updates around something like Helldivers 2 beyond, we'll even say the first year, I feel like you get a year of content and you know what, guys, it's been real. All the stuff's still there. You can keep playing. We're moving on to the sequel. We're going to make something new. Whereas what happened with Bungie and Destiny 2, they're still making Destiny 2. Like it's still a thing. It should have been, I get that they turned it into a whole meta and it's like Destiny 3 is never coming. That's just how it is now because they cannot separate themselves from Destiny 2. So that comes back to what Shuhei said. It's like, hey, you could do Last of Us Online, but guess what you're going to turn into? The Last of Us Online studio. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a good. Well, I'm not sure how many people really care about Firesprite, but it's like, okay, well, if this game came out and it was successful, then Firesprite's the Twisted Metal studio. Forever.
They become they become all the studios become so predictable then, and it's just, I don't know. I like a little bit of surprise. That, like, even though Blue Point showing up with whatever their God of War multiplayer game would have been, that would have, I think everyone would have been like, whoa, what in the world? Really? That's what they're doing?
And not for the good.
It could, we don't know. You know, God of War multiplayer could have been kind of cool. We'll have seen, but the live service thing, man, that mentality, battle passes, the ongoing support. I'm kind of looking at this like it's doing some damage to the mentality around these games. The old arena shooter, man, it was tried and true formula. Those are the good days from like 20 years ago.
Another prime example too of this was an older IP being explored.
And kids in their Fortnite.
I don't know, man. I still pose the question: do we want certain IP to come back, and this is how they come back? I just don't know.
That's the problem. The live service thing, man. If Twisted Metal couldn't just be a $50 arena multiplayer game with a year of support and a fun little 5-hour campaign, what happened to those days?
They're gone. They are gone.
Hey, you get the PS2 still exists. You know, you can get one that you can load the games off a memory card now. HDMI out is just a dongle at this point. You just plug it in the back. It's beautiful out there right now on the PS2. Twisted Metal Black, you know?
That is a PS2 game. That is a PS2 game. Let's move on to this isn't quite live service, but it's, you know, live service adjacent. The multiplayer game that Sony is publishing, Midnight Murder Club. We've got some early access details. This game is launching very soon in early access.
You've been talking about this for a while, haven't you? I feel like you brought this up multiple times.
Yeah, well, because it kind of came out of nowhere during that. It wasn't a state of play. It was something else where this was announced, and it was kind of weird. It was the pre-show for the Game Awards, I think it was. And this trailer popped up for this game, and I was like, "Oh, SI is publishing this. That's kind of weird." Mm-hmm. So it's going into early access on March 13th. It's going to be sold for $19.99 on PS5 and PC, but they are taking the Hazelight approach, John. It's got a guest pass edition. So if one person buys the game, you can invite up to 5 guest players to play for free, both in public and private matches. So it is kind of a one-time thing that somebody can buy, and then your whole friend group can jump into the game.
That's interesting. I mean, you've been talking about this, like I said, for a little while now. We are close. We're 10 days or so away from it coming out, 9 days. And this is interesting. 6 guests, 1 deadly game. Oh, okay. You get a gun and a flashlight, and then you just go out into the darkened halls of a mansion and you just fight each other. Yeah,
it's the mansion game. You get 6 players get into a very dark mansion. You can only hear the other players. Unless somebody fires a gun, then there's like a brief moment where you can see them. They're exposing their position. Or if somebody uses fire or something. I mean, it looks like a funny, goofy game, but it was just surprising that Sony was publishing it. And it's also on PC day one, where it will require a PSN ID, which I feel like that, and then also it costing money, even despite the whole 5 friend pass thing. Still kind of a tough ask, I think, at least on PC.
Oh, wow. Dude, this is from Valen. Valen? I always see, it's one of those things where I always see, and I don't know, I've never heard anyone say it out loud, really. Valen. They did Knockout City. And that was actually, I actually thought that game was all right. I mean, it eventually died off, but that was like the dodgeball.
Yeah.
Arena style. Yeah, that was actually kind of a fun game that, again, unfortunately didn't work out. Live service, all that. But that's interesting. This is what they were doing next.
Well, that was a PS Plus game too, if I recall. I don't think it was. Was that day one? Was Knockout City day one on PS Plus? I don't think it was. I can't remember. It might have been.
Maybe.
I know Foam Stars was.
Oh, Knockout City's still around, but they made it so it's like a private server thing now.
Yeah. Well, I guess that would explain the relationship, though, of why Sony is publishing it.
That's good. Well, good to see they came up with something new. That is at least interesting, this Midnight Murder Club.
In early access.
Might be worth checking in on and see how that goes when it comes out. See what people think of it in early access, then maybe take a swing at it for $20.
I see PS Plus Essential on this game in a few months.
Okay, so I was going to say this probably will be that, but so it's going in early access on PlayStation, right?
Yes.
That's been a thing for Sony. That's like one of the reasons that like Palworld, for example, might not have been on, like, that was an early access game I know on Xbox and Steam and stuff, right, when that dropped. And that was always a thing that was brought up for Sony, was like the early access thing was kind of like, it's not,
they don't really
straightforward. Yeah. So if for something like this, you think this thing has trophies at launch?
Well,
on early access,
you would. Yeah, I mean, that's the way. Like, Sony's been getting understandably more lenient in this area, and maybe they should start like loosening up on this whole idea. We're in a very different environment nowadays. Like, some studios just need to launch the game in a state that they can not have so much financial commitment into, flush the game out, and see community feedback and build on that. So maybe that's the direction they'll start going. And maybe this is like one of those small things that they could sort of learn a lot from, since they are publishing it.
Yeah, I think that's just, if you're upfront with the person at the time of sale and you're like, hey, this isn't a complete game technically, and there might be issues, and the developer's trying to work this out through community participation. Okay, again, as long as you're not trying to sell it as a non-early access game, I don't see a problem.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't destroy your system. Like, there could be bugs and glitches, but if it like does some serious damage to the system, there's a problem. So you have to at least do some kind of lot check on it.
It seems like it's in pretty playable shape. So that game's launching soon. Next up, we have Spider-Man 3 speculation, John. Spider-Man 3. So the actor Yuri Lowenthal, who plays Peter Parker in the game, he was speaking with the Direct at Multicon this past weekend. This would have been 2 weekends ago now at this point, but he was asked about the next game. Now, no spoilers, obviously, but Yuri did address this in a very sort of non-spoilery way by saying, and I quote, "There are very few things I can say about this game, but you've somehow landed on the one thing that I can answer, and that's yes, Peter is not gone. He will be a part of the next game, and he won't be relegated to the couch, I promise." So, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people finished the second game, and no spoilers, just that people were curious as to where the direction of the story would go and certain characters' involvement, that being Peter in this case. So it's funny how that's like he directly said, like, wow, that's the one thing I can say. Yes, I will be in the game. Don't worry.
This was so fun because I saw the headlines too, Ryan, pop up around this. Yeah. And I thought, you really think they're going to try to sell a game that we know the numbers. They had a whole little meeting about how scary the numbers looked. Yeah. Can we split this into 2 versions? Can we sell it twice? But do you think they're going to sell put out a game that, I mean, I'll just $400 million maybe for the budget, maybe more than that for the budget. And Spider-Man, Peter Parker, red suit Spider-Man isn't going to be on the cover somewhere.
Well, that's the thing. People are concerned that, that would happen. But then by the time you're playing the game, maybe his role is not as big. But
we've seen this trope in many Spider-Man movies or series or whatever, where, he falls out of being Spider-Man and then he comes back and like wins at the end. We've seen it enough, like, especially since we assume this is the finale game of a trilogy. I don't know. I mean, I get the concern because, you play through Spider-Man 2, again, no spoilers, but that question is out there for a reason. There'll be other characters obviously that'll come in, but no, I think you'll see. I think Peter will be in it quite a bit. Yes,
I would presume so.
Yeah, I would, especially the amount of money it probably costs for this IP, as we've seen. They're going to use all the characters they can, I think, for the finale.
Yeah, that I picture this game sort of being a tying up loose ends, like big final, bang for the whole.
Here's the real question, Ryan. Do you think they go into the multiverse for this last one?
I personally don't expect it.
You don't think so? Really?
I don't think so.
I'm not going to do any spoilers for Spider-Man 2, but I kind of feel like based on some of the side quests, I kind of think they might. I think there might be
I'm due for another playthrough. I guess I'll pay attention to it more next time.
There were a couple side quests that you can go around and do. You know how they have you do like these different it's basically like the same kind of thing, like you're around different areas and eventually that story sees the conclusion and then you get some kind of final cutscene or conversation. Yeah. And they always reference different characters. And again, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but there are like so many characters that were mentioned or pointed out but didn't end up in the game that I feel like will be in the next one. And one of them hints at the idea of a multiverse.
I'm actually not remembering this, but again, I'm due for another playthrough, so maybe I'll pay attention more next time.
I think if they go for the finale and they got that licensing fee out there, they're like, yo, we're using all kinds of people from the Spider-Man universe. So that's all I'll say. I think it'll be that's the thing. I do think the finale will be pretty interesting, and it will release to, we assume, a large install size of PlayStation 5 owners. So,
well, they do have to do something to sort of hook people in a way that they otherwise can't from the past. What would be 3-something games now taking place primarily in Manhattan? You had new boroughs in 2, but it's like another game where it's a lot of it in Manhattan. You would think they do have to sort of figure out a way to hook people into the third entry. So,
what was the canceled Spider-Man game?
The Great Web,
the multiverse game.
Oh,
multiverse game. I think I think that'll play into. That's just my thought. Is like that's a great way to separate it from the second one. You bring in a bunch of Spider-Man. That's how you do it.
We'll see. All we know is that Yuri is going to be in it.
There you go. Spider-Man will be in Spider-Man 3. Wow.
It really is. It's that kind of news where it's like, okay, well, what are we really doing here?
I just the headlines were funny. I think one was that Spider-Man will be in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, he will be there. We got a rumor here, John. We got a rumor. Sound the alarms. God of War remasters coming for the 20th anniversary. Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb wrote this in during one of the recent Game Mess Decides episodes, saying that the remasters are real and are going to be revealed soon. He also talked about this on Blue Sky. So he said that he was reposting somebody else where they were making art for the upcoming 20th anniversary. And he just said that, I think those remaster rumors jumped the gun a little bit and they'll be announced closer to this, which would be an announcement in potentially very soon, maybe just a few weeks from now, because in a few weeks will be the 20th anniversary for God of War. I am so curious as to what these will look like, assuming it does happen, right? Because there's just so many permutations of how it could look. Are we looking at just like, because really it's just like 1 and 2. Those are the games that are not on PS4, PS5. Do you emulate them? Do you do a Crisis Core thing where it's like, these look pretty nice? Not a full-blown remake, but these look really nice. Do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then
let's be real. You do 1, 2, and 3, right?
Well, what do you do with 3 though? That's the other thing. Does 3 go to PC? Is it just a frame rate and resolution bump? Are you doing are you really sprucing up 3? Because 3 obviously looks very good on PS4. It's just more of a financial thing at that point. Like, how much resources are you going to put into prettying these games up on PS4, PS5?
I saw them remaster Days Gone. They can remaster God of War 3. I kind of think it makes sense, Ryan, to do just a triple pack 3 of them. Although I say that easily as someone who doesn't have to worry about pricing or developing it or any of the serious work. Just saying it now. I think it would be kind of cool if they just did 1, 2, and 3. So it ties together. It would be kind of weird though. You're right. If they did a PC release for this, because it's a remaster / remake, however far they want to go with it, but it is technically a re-release. So it's not new game release, new IP, nothing. We're not going to put it on PC. It's like, why not? Can we make more money off that? Probably. Yeah. I think there's quite a few people on PC who would buy this. And in that case, you got to put 3 in there because you can't leave them with the God of War 2 ending. That's messed up. So I think it'd be cool though if they did this as a anniversary collection pack. Something. So you add in maybe even developer commentary, a whole slew, I assume, of like celebration side with a museum, like really maybe some stuff that they've never really shown before. So they bring in old concept art, scrapped ideas, enemies, allies, and maybe even little storylines that never got in, just left on the cutting room floor. So I would expect this to be shown as like a celebration. And my only thing though is I think this is a thing, but I also think Jeff is like trying to line it up with where it makes sense to announce it. And that can kind of get you into some trouble as someone just trying to relay the news to people as this makes sense that it would be here because people go, okay, Jeff said it's getting announced here. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we're seeing right now is him trying to line it up because I do believe this is a real thing. It's going to happen. We've already gone over the numbers for PlayStation streaming where that's like the most popular game to stream is God of War 1 and 2. So why wouldn't you repackage and sell it again? And I think it would do really well for him. So I think it's one of those situations, Ryan, where it gets revealed and it's out by the summer.
I would think it would be like a very like there's no point in announcing this and saying it's 2026. Like they showed this thing off, it's gonna come out very soon.
Yep. I think a June release, July release, somewhere in there would be fine for it. And I mean, I'm buying it, and that'd be cool to see it. I hope though you're right. It's well, like they're not going to do the full remake.
Like, what do you think it would look like? Because like, there's no the thing. Like, it's as we've said before. Like, they could just put these through the basic emulation program that Implicit Conversions does. If you're just going to emulate PS2 games, they could have easily been put through that program. But if there's any IP where it gets special treatment, it's this one.
Got to be this.
But so like, okay, well, you're not going to just do PS2 games again, are you? Like, is it going to be like a little bit like what we saw with Crisis Core, where it really blurs the line between a remake and a remaster? And then again, for 3, it's like, sure, you could remake 3, but that just doesn't, that's a lot of money to fully remake that game. So do you give it like a high frame rate mode and just, throw PSSR on the damn thing? I don't know. It's like, but surely like 3 has to come too, because you want 3 to be available on PC. So that way people have the entire sort of mainline arc on PC now.
Yeah, that would be my assumption, is it's going to get that thing that Borderlines remaster, like where people go back and forth. Is this remaster? Is the remake?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like recently we had that Ninja Gaiden 2 Black come out, and they did Unreal Engine 5 over top of the old visuals, kind of, and that's how they achieve that. So that is also kind of a situation of, it's a remake, but we did also use the older like game and assets and stuff to kind of halfway it almost, and it looks great though. It came out great. I hope they do go so far that we argue about, is it a remake or remaster? Like, I hope it is in that territory, and it's not the let's run it through an emulator, but we still want to put it on a disc in a collection and sell it for full price.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. Is that it is a, you mentioned God of War 3 already looks really good. It can look better. You can.
It could, but it's just, that's the thing. Like, how much extra resources are they really going to pump into 3? Yeah.
I mean, this also kind of feels like that. Yeah. You mentioned that you onboard talent for these different studios for different projects. Good way to introduce them is to give them an older game to remaster or remake or whatever. This kind of feels like that situation almost for Sony Santa Monica. Just go back and do some remastering treatment here for some of the newer recruits and touch it up a little bit more as a collection with some stuff that was left out maybe, and release it. You
think it would be in-house at Santa Monica?
They have enough where they can, I mean, for PC, I assume they'd bring in Nixus although Nixus hasn't been on a great roll recently, technically.
Don't you think this could actually be a Nixus joint entirely?
You think so? You think they would
Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered?
That's true. That's true. The only reason I say you'd want Sony Santa Monica involved is because you would look for some of the history to be with this. Is like, I feel like they'd be involved somewhat, because it'd be like, hey, let's get the museum right to go alongside of this. So even if they don't necessarily do the remaster treatment, I assume they'd go through and figure out what they want to include and what would be really fun to have as like callbacks and anniversary things to put in there for fans.
I'm so curious what it looks like, and who is doing it, and what does it look like?
Yeah. What if they say, hey, God of War 120 PSSR, 120 frames PSSR?
I mean, that'd be sick if like God of War 3 does get a little bit of treatment to where it just looks kind of nutty on PS5. I'd be in for that. I love God of War 3. That game is just fucking insane.
Oh, it's ridiculous from start to finish. Yeah,
it's so fun. It's just one of those games where it fires off on every cylinder. There's like no downtime in that game. Maybe outside of like the puzzles you do near like Aphrodite or something.
It is nonsense. It's very much to stark contrast from God of War now, where it's a lot of quiet times and slow moments. It's just, you just drop it immediately and it's like, start killing stuff. It's okay.
Game is damn good. All right, let's move on to the India Hero Project. We had 2 new games announced out of the India Hero Project. One of them is called Bloody Boots. No gameplay, but it's coming to PS5 and PC. It's a third-person action-adventure game set in Cranktown, which is a dystopian entertainment hub that thrives on illegal gambling. You play as a fugitive teen trapped in the town with mutants, mech-enhanced supervillains, and bosses. And then the other one is called Loco. This one does have a trailer, and it's a cross-platform 3D platformer that lets you share custom characters, enemies, and levels using an in-game editor, coming to PS5, PC, and iOS. I think that's first. I think that's the first like Hero Project game that is also coming to like mobile, like the same time as all the other ones. Although this thing like is basically like looks like a Roblox. You know what I mean?
It does. Yeah. I see it.
So 2 more Indie Hero Project games. I do want to note we should be hearing about some MENA Hero Project games fairly soon, Middle East and North Africa. They announced that mid 2024, and it really did not take that long for that, like every program we've had so far and every China Hero wave to like get applicants submitted into the program, because they're already like far along enough to where they just get a grant from Sony. And so we might see more announcements from MENA Hero soon. which I'm very much looking forward to. It's such a smart play to make this such a big global effort to give grants to these talented teams that otherwise were not really getting this kind of funding to publish on console.
This Loco game, they mention, they show it in the trailer, that it has DualSense controller support on the phone as well. Like it shows it changing the color of the light, like the 2 light bars on there and stuff with the game. That's interesting.
Looks cool. Bloody Boots sounds interesting. I want to see what that game looks like.
Sony got their mobile game at least.
That might be the only damn way they get mobile games, because
well,
if there's one thing we can say that's been a disaster outside of live service, it's been their mobile efforts.
Yeah, I bet you that they were pretty happy to see that Loco was also a mobile game. Like, whew, we got something.
Oh man, all right. It's kind of miraculous how often we get Xbox news on Click.
Is it? Yeah. Is it anymore? Are you sure?
Well, I feel like we would be remiss to not talk about Fable, which
isn't Microsoft becoming such a big publisher that they're like, it's impossible for Sony to ignore anymore, because like they're about to publish how many games this year on Sony's platform?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's just what it is. This is the world we live in. Yeah. But I mean, Fable is arguably in that. I don't know. I mean, it's usually like Gears, Halo, Forza, but like Fable's kind of like number 4. You know,
it's a storied franchise. Yeah, it is.
Yes, storied franchise. So, quick news here: delayed to 2026. But there's been speculation that maybe this, at the very minimum, it's not the primary reason, but maybe it now lines it up for a PS5 version as well. So when the game does come out next year, you might see it on Xbox, PC, and also PlayStation 5.
I think so. I think that's what's going to happen here. It's like, because if you think about it, they do push it to 2026. It's going to cost them more, sure, but easier to justify when you go, oh yeah, we're also going to have a PS5 version day and date. We'll be ready to roll.
So yeah, there's that news. I did also want to briefly mention Forza Horizon 5 is launching April 29th for $59.99 USD, which people are kind of upset about that. But what are you going to do? It's launching on a new platform. Well, it's kind of expensive. Yeah.
It's not even 70. Man, they're getting a deal over there.
Yes, well, it's just too much money, I guess. Also, people very upset. No physical.
Oh, yeah. No, I how many times have I keep saying this? Microsoft's done with physical after this generation. Like, they're barely doing it now, guys. Come on. Here's next Xbox gets shown. There's no disc drive on that thing.
Here's the thing, though, John. They're publishing on a platform that wants physical. Just because their own system doesn't, their own buyers, their own customer base up to this point has very much been conditioned to primarily playing that way. I mean, they have a duty as a big publisher to accommodate what other audiences want on those other platforms. I think it is something where you may not have it now. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually offer one.
As weird as it sounds, I wouldn't be shocked if like a limited run came in and tried to do it.
Well, like it's either they swoop in, because obviously that's their business model, is like they'll approach Microsoft and be like, hey, well, we can do it, and here's what the numbers look like. And they can provide more insight into, because like, here's the thing, right? They've got Activision and Bethesda, so clearly they have insight as far as like numbers go for shipping on PlayStation. But it's still a very studio by studio thing at times, and in Playground Games, they're more of an Xbox studio, so they just might need a little bit of push, a little bit of leverage, a little bit of fan demand as well, of like, well, if we keep hearing that PlayStation players want physical, maybe we can go back and get that arranged. So I think there's a very good chance that maybe it will happen at some point.
I could see that. Like you mentioned, like limited run or something comes in. But as soon as I see Microsoft start doing the code in a box for their own first party games on their platform, it's like, they're kind of like digital. Let's go. They're ready. So, and I mean, in their mind, they can do this thing where they shadow drop games in the Game Pass because they don't have to worry about physical games.
Well, I mean, this is the plight of a physical games owner nowadays. I'm
telling you, man, it's
is that you a lot of times you wait longer and you pay more. There's just that's what it is nowadays for some games, not all games.
The thing that was weird to me, and because I did see people talking about the price and stuff. They did early access for this thing again.
Yeah, they did. Nope.
That's funny. That's like really.
It's not really April 29th. You can actually pay a lot more and get it 3 days early.
I will tell you this. This is going to sound really weird. I wouldn't be shocked if people bought that. You know why? Back when
it's doing well.
Game franchise. I remember this with Forza Horizon 3. So many people spent $100 on the game when it came out, and I was at the store to get it on Wednesday instead of like
And
Friday.
that was a long, that was years ago now at this point. That was
yeah. You'd have to come into the store and pick it up. It was a physical copy, and you had to spend extra money. It was $100 instead of $60 to get it a few days early. And people came in droves to get this thing.
That was really uncommon back then too. There were not many situations where that happened.
Yep, they've been doing that. They've been doing it for a while. This early access thing, and it seems to work for Forza. Forza Horizon is a big franchise. It wouldn't shock me if Microsoft's able to siphon more money out of PlayStation that way. And it's something they're doing with Game Pass right now, where they realize, yes, some people will wait to get the game day one on Game Pass, but some people will spend, because the way it works, if you have Game Pass, usually they'll offer you like a discounted rate to go up and get the early access. So it might be like $20 on top. You spend $20 even though you have Game Pass, but you get it early. People are doing it. Like it seems like a business practice that's working for Microsoft right now. It's just weird because the game's been out for so long on Xbox and on PC, and they're like, "Oh, look, get it early." It's like, I've had it on my PC. What are you talking about? I just want to try it on the PS5. So.
It does seem a little bit weird when you frame it like that.
But Microsoft's gonna. I mean, these games, when like a premier franchise like that for them, it's not gonna be cheap when it comes out.
Well, you've got that to look forward to in April. We're also hearing that
you see the top of the sales chart for it.
Yeah, the game is not doing bad on PlayStation.
No, it's doing really well, and I figured it would actually do very well there, just based on Gran Turismo numbers. There's a pretty big racing audience there. I think they'll latch on to Forza Horizon 5.
Oh, for sure. If you're like a long-standing PlayStation person, I mean, it's not exactly like it, but like it's got some MotorStorm blood in there. You know, it's very fun arcadey game. Yeah. And so that's in April. We might also be hearing about Indiana Jones as well, going on the store in April as well. So 2 April releases, 2 big launches.
Microsoft's going crazy right now.
Yeah, they're going after that. Going ham. When you have 30-something studios, turns out you publish a lot of games.
2025 is looking like it's going to be that kind of year for Microsoft. And like I said, like what 80%, 70% of the games are also just going to PlayStation as well. A lot of their big tentpole titles even. So that's there be a presence this year. You're going to see that a lot, and I think you're going to see more games. We're expecting Master Chief Collection to get announced this year for PlayStation. That'll be a big one. I'll tell you now, I think Starfield's getting announced for PlayStation this year.
You know, it's weird. It seems like the rumors for Starfield like kind of died down. Like it was Starfield initially, maybe because there's so many eyes on that game. Then it like that kind of died down, and now we hear about all these other IP. You would have thought like Starfield would be one of the first ones that gets announced and comes over. You
know what else is going to show up? Oblivion remake. That's going to get announced, I think, for PlayStation as well.
Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2.
Microsoft's about to drop like the reason we're going to see like 2 April releases, I think, from, as you mentioned, Indiana Jones and Forces, because there's the next month is going to have other stuff in it, like Doom's there. And then June, I think we're going to have a double stack of games. July is Tony Hawk. And then we start getting into the back half of the year. You know, Call of Duty is there waiting.
Mm-hmm. You think we get Hexic HD? And then
you know that's the first thing I thought about. I was like, man, I know people are asking about Starfield. What about Hexic HD?
And then Crackdown, the first one.
You want Crackdown? You want Crackdown 3?
I want the first one.
They give that game away for free on the Xbox a lot, actually.
Yeah.
People still don't claim it, which is a shame, because the first Crackdown is still one of those titles.
I love that game.
It's stuck with me forever.
I love that game. It's like such an early 360 game. It's like one of those pinnacle early 360 games.
It was awesome. You know what has always stuck in my mind about that game is when you got your car level upgraded completely and you get in a car and it would like Matrix morph into some awesome vehicle. Man. Like in real time, you'd watch it happen. It was like, this is incredible.
I just liked how you were like a superhuman, basically. You just slowly upgrade your jump to where like you can just leap over buildings, and I don't know, I like that.
You just slowly turned into basically a super soldier.
Yeah, the game was fun.
They should sell it there. They should move it to PlayStation 5 for $60 now.
The first Crackdown. All right, Agent.
Yeah, right. You spent $60 on this game. Enjoy the next 4 hours of your life playing this.
Oh boy. So here's another interesting talking point, right? So we had this news. Bloober Team confirms another Konami collaboration. So confirmed on Bloober's site, they say they're now working on a new game based on Konami's IP, saying that the trust they built on the success of Silent Hill 2 laid the foundation for signing another agreement. Now we're hearing that this game is codenamed Project G at Bloober, which was already in the concept phase back in 2023. So now it just seems like this game is like full steam ahead. There's also Project H, I think it's called. Basically, there's just a lot of speculation that like, okay, Silent Hill 2 came out. They actually nailed it, did well, very successful. Now we're looking at potentially Silent Hill 1, 3, if they're going to remake those. That doesn't surprise me. I am curious though, John, what do you think about this? Does Sony feel the pressure anymore to lock down games? Like this was a timed exclusivity agreement with 2. Yeah, it was a pretty high profile. Like it was rumored for a long time. Sony's involved. They've got the game locked to PS5. It's still console exclusive for the time being, but like, do they feel the pressure to do those kind of agreements going into like another Bloober game or anything else, basically? Like if they're not full blown publishing it, mind you.
Right. I mean, that's the issue we run into if there's less competition, we'll say, from Microsoft. Will they keep doing these deals? I mean, you feel like they still would have to do some deals. Just as we mentioned, they could end up some gaps because of canceled projects and stuff. And I think there are also some games that don't happen if there's not involvement from the platform holder, I should say, that's willing to put some money in. And that could have been the situation of Silent Hill 2, because Konami, being Konami, might have said, you know what, we kind of want Silent Hill 2, but we don't want to spend a lot of money on it. And you end up with like the weird in between kind of game. And Bloober Team's like, we did what we could with the money we had. In this case, though, it wouldn't shock me if Sony's involvement with the money they helped put up with it got it to where it is, and that it's probably worth it for them. The thing with this, though, I assume I would like to see him go backwards and do Silent Hill 1, because that clearly needs the remake treatment. Like that's the one that needs it the most. But Silent Hill 3 might be the move, and maybe Silent Hill 4, because they're already they were PS2 and Xbox games, back then. So it might be a bit easier for them to do the remake treatment to those. There's less left to those PS1 games. A lot of imagination came into play for some of that stuff. So I feel like Sony should continue being aggressive, though. I do. A lot of the stuff. Yeah. And because you get lackadaisical Sony, and things can go wrong. We've seen it.
Well, that's the thing. You would think they wouldn't get complacent, but it's such a weird thing where it's like, man, your closest competitor for years, like this is where we're at. And now it's just, kind of, I don't know what word there is here, but it looks a certain way when it's like you won, like you clearly won, you're getting all their games, and you're still just like, no, you can't have this one. You can't have this one. We'll release this game on Switch, but you're not getting it. We'll do, it's almost comical in a way, where it's just like Sony's in this position of like, we won and we stay winning.
Well, how do you know that Microsoft wouldn't come in and try to do something with Konami then if Sony isn't willing to? That's the other part of it.
Well, I mean, are they in that position? When are they locking down timed exclusivity agreements?
Well, they're not doing the timed exclusivity thing, but they are doing the thing where they get the game, they attach their branding all over it, and then they put it into Game Pass. And while Sony right now is looking at it thinking, well, it's fine, Game Pass isn't growing like they want it to, and we things can change generation to generation. I don't really know what Microsoft's plan is yet. None of us do for the next gen. But you still kind of think about that in the back of your mind. Like, what if they did release a system that had Steam on it and was open and you could play PlayStation games on it? And now here they are locking down Silent Hill 1 remake, and it's on Game Pass, and it's on their Xbox, also on PlayStation. You don't really need to worry about that. You just play it in Game Pass right here on the box that already plays PlayStation games. That's the thing. You got to, once you start falling back a bit, you don't get as aggressive, then you could fall into a bit of a trap. Not a PlayStation 3 size trap, because I think it's kind of tough to do that now, although they came off the PS2 at 150 plus million, 160 million, thanks Jim Ryan. And they fell down with the PS3. So you don't know. That's my thing is Microsoft did Ninja Gaiden 4. That wasn't going to happen if they didn't do it. Japanese publisher, developer and stuff out there, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think Microsoft right now, with what's happening with Satya Nadella kind of going all in on gaming right now, it feels like, why wouldn't they throw some money at Konami to make that happen?
Sure. But that's the thing. They're not purposely sort of locking the game away from what was previously considered a competitor, No.
But they would have the publishing rights along with Konami, I assume, over, Silent Hill in general then at that point, like Silent Hill 1, the remake.
Yeah, I mean, they'd
gotten for it now.
Yeah, they'd have like the marketing rights and everything. And so, I mean, it's a valid point. Obviously, a lot of studios and certain publishers are still looking for just joint financial custody of a game, basically, to get it out the door. But, it's an interesting thing to think about, I guess, where it's like, how much pressure will they really feel going into like another cycle of consoles, knowing they're as strong as they've arguably ever been against a competitor?
Well, the issue you'd run into then is Sony is strong right now with the console sales. Obviously, they sell, like, in terms of a high-end box that you buy, put on your TV. Yeah, obviously the market leader. Like, Nintendo's doing their hybrid thing, which is working out great for them, but it's not a high-end box that you have to put on your TV. Microsoft has, they've just sputtered out completely at this point. Every quarter, it's like down 30%, down 25%. But what happens if Microsoft gets to the position where they still makes the system, but their strategy is just all software, and all of a sudden they start showing up making more gross revenue than PlayStation, but then also their profit margin is higher than PlayStation? Like, what that's an awkward position for Sony to be in, because they're providing the box that Microsoft is selling a lot of software. Like, you see the shotgun blast of software they're doing right now. What if that just becomes a common occurrence? And it's just like, man, they're doing a lot here to pull money from PlayStation at that point.
Oh, if some might argue maybe that is getting into a territory where it becomes a lot more symbiotic, or maybe it's no longer this sort of we're competing with you kind of thing. It's like you're making money and we're making money and we're just kind of happy with how things worked out. Not saying that's what it is or what it's going to be, but it's we kind of circle back around the same thing of like, it's just like uncharted waters of where it could potentially go. It's very weird.
To me, if you're unsure and you're Sony, I think you just remain aggressive, because if you're unclear as to the way the market's shifting, stick with your strategy that's worked. I
assume that is what they'll keep doing. I don't expect them to slow down at all. And it just still looks a certain way when it's like you won and they're still just like not letting off the gas here.
Hold on. Did Silent Hill 2 came out on PC?
Yeah. Are
they locking it down then if Microsoft launches a console that runs Steam?
Well, that's making the bold assumption that ever happens.
What if it does? That's the thing. We're an uncharted territory. What if it happens? What if they're like, hey, this box runs Steam as well as our Xbox store, but you run Steam on it if you want. Who cares? I feel like that would throw Sony would do that thing where like, hold on, what? Like, they'd have a hard time putting it together in their mind.
That completely changes things, obviously, but just in the scope of what we're talking about now, like Sony exclusivity to Sony is simply not that guy. That's why they don't care. They'll do PS5 and PC as long as it's not that guy. When it becomes that guy, then it's a problem.
Would it become a problem then if it becomes that guy at the end of 2026, but they've locked down Silent Hill 1 remake and Silent Hill 3 remake, and it can go on Steam and PC?
You mean if like Steam is playable on Xbox?
Yeah, like would that then become a problem halfway through and they're like,
well, yeah, like I said, exclusivity to Sony is not Xbox. So when it
Right.
becomes Xbox, then yes, that would be
That
a
would be
problem.
very strange that'd be very awkward for them at that point.
Oh, for sure.
I,
It'd be
I actually kind
weird.
of wonder what Sony would do then. Like, what would they, if God of War, what if, could Microsoft advertise that God of War is on Xbox with the Steam logo next to it?
That's why like this is like I don't want to say outlandish because it's crazy how many things have happened in just like 3 years.
Right.
But we're getting into outlandish territory. I just don't see that ever happening. But you know, obviously, stick a pin in me, and maybe I'll be wrong in 2-3 years. But that's like a sort of probability I see being very low.
That would remind me of Sony or Microsoft getting caught off guard at that E3 with them and like the PlayStation 4 when all that went down.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Microsoft showed up and like did a similar commercial thing where they instead of handing a game, they hand them a controller and like, oh yeah, you could use this PlayStation controller on this Xbox and Steam's on there.
That'd be hard pressed to see that happen, but you never know.
That'd be a weird like timeline to be in.
Yeah.
PlayStation games on Xbox, all because they built up this Steam library with this PC push, and Microsoft just randomly shows up with Steam on their box.
Maybe it'll happen. Maybe you're right, John.
You know what'd be interesting about that though is it would put Sony into like overdrive aggressive mode then.
Maybe more so than they already are.
Right. That would be interesting.
They never got complacent. Like they've always been just super aggressive.
But it's like aggressive from the advantageous side. What would Sony right now look like if they were on their back foot and aggressive? Like what would that look like then for them, you think?
I don't know.
What do you think they would do? Because I feel like that's where we are right now. Everyone kind of looks at Sony. It came up with that article. Is Sony coasting? Remember? That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
What would it be like if Sony all of a sudden got pushed into that corner out of nowhere? Like I wonder what that would look like for them. What would they do?
It's tough to say. I find it's also important to remember the context of, I guess, the lead. I don't want to say they're in a safe lead, but it's like when we're talking about digital libraries,
right?
It's just the position they're in now is just so ingrained versus like 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, and in many cases that 3 to 4 jump where 4 sort of locked in those libraries for customers how many years onwards.
Right.
So I don't want to say it's impossible that, people will jump ship or whatever the case is, but
no,
it's there's a certain mountain to climb here as far as like Sony losing their position.
Right. I don't even know what that would even mean technically, because the console still sell for them. And that's what their primary business is around, is the console. Can we sell 100 million consoles this generation? And it's like, yeah, it seems like you can. So
yeah. That finite number of consoles that get sold, and Sony's got a very large portion of it now.
Yeah.
We do have at least one example of Sony kind of falling down here. So big news, hardware update, PSVR 2. The price cut is official. PSVR 2. New pricing takes effect right now. So they announced this right before March kicked in. Just saying that starting this month, the base headset will be $399 USD, and that is also £399 pounds sterling or 449 euros. And that's the same price for the base headset and also Call of the Mountain bundle. So you can pay $400 and you can either choose to get the game or not. I
was going crazy when I saw that because I looked at that and I was like, why?
It's the same price.
Yeah, why wouldn't I just buy the one that comes with the game? Unless you really don't. I mean, you got to have Horizon on your box art. I know some people are like, man, Horizon's everywhere. No, yeah,
it's you're not allowed.
Might as well buy the one that comes with the game, obviously. So
I don't know if there's like a manufacture date on the headset. I gotta just take some time to look at them. But it's like, are you still working through the same ones you made 2 years ago?
That's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah, like you think there would be like new bundles, but can they not do that because they're still working through it? I don't know. The point is, the price has been cut.
You should figure that out, Ryan, because honestly, if that's still like
I think that's
PSVR 2 bundles, I think some people owe Takashi Machizuki a bit of an apology then.
Well, I don't think that report was ever wrong per se. It was clear that they were not doing well with these things even initially. But
people are all over him on that thing, and now
well,
it's like,
people don't. Well, people don't like him because it's like that story and then a lot of other stories, holistically speaking.
Yeah, that one in particular, I remember he was getting beaten up online over pretty bad.
The guy runs nothing but stories that's negative. There's just no way around it. And he's asking for that reputation. I always was a defender of that guy. I'm like, hey, give the guy a break. He's just reporting, and obviously it's bad news that he chooses to report on. But look, the point is, John, PSVR 2 is a lot cheaper nowadays. Not as cheap as it was when it got to that the Black Friday sales. It was down to like
Yeah, it was like
350.
350. Yeah, yeah.
So $50 difference there, but like 400, I would say is still pretty good. Now, obviously, it's like kind of late. Is 2 years on because the headset is 2 years old now. But look, I'll say what I always say on this topic. It's a VR problem. You fix every problem PSVR 2 has. It's not all of a sudden going to like set the world on fire. That being like make the headset wireless, drop the price, PSVR compatibility. Doesn't matter. You fix all those. It's still not going to like move tens of millions of units. So having said that, I think the price cut is still, making the best of like a bad situation.
Do you think they ever attempt, if they do a next gen one, do you think they attempt it without the need of a PlayStation console attached to it? Because we believe they're making a handheld that would use a lower power chip as well. So I almost wonder if they're thinking, could we do better in this sector if our headset was similar to what Meta does with their Quest line, where you don't need anything else. You just put the headset on, turn it on, and go. If they could maybe, because they're already making the low power chip, they're, I assume, creating with AMD, right, where they're going to do cross development on it and figure it out. I almost wonder if, because they're already there doing that, do they also work it into the PSVR 3 for next generation? And that's still a thing.
Doing one.
But they take a shot. But just the fact that they're already making that lower power chip, like to run off of battery, like they're already kind of halfway there. Would they take a shot at that? Is it worth doing still after this? Because it's very clear that we all know the PSVR 2 didn't exactly do well. So
I'm sure they've looked into it, or they are actively looking into it. You almost maybe wonder if is that reactionary because the tethered headset was the problem, or is it because again it's like a VR problem? You look at untethered headsets and like, yeah, Meta can sell a ton of them, but like game sales are awful. People just aren't like, you can see like developer anecdotes of like, oh, we've sold so and so on the MetaQuest, and it's just like it's abysmal. Like it's almost like they're very much in that sort of Wii environment of like, yeah, a lot of people bought them, but how many people are active players that are buying new software for it? So I'm not exactly sure if standalone is the answer here.
Yeah, you're right. I think just the VR market has not been great for gaming, like in terms of like not receptive to it as much as you'd expect for the amount of units that sell, which is unfortunate because I feel like there could have been there still can be, but money, it's very clear, is being sucked out of that market by investors and publishers and platform holders. It doesn't seem as interesting to them as it was 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, where we were seeing all kinds of VR stuff happen. And now I barely ever see news about it anymore.
I wonder what they will do for possibly another headset. It's the thing, like, I don't think it's a guarantee anymore that PSVR 3 is going to happen. Unless they want to
making a headset apparently this year, they're going to release one.
Well, it's like you would think like, okay, PSVR 2 obviously not doing well, but this is still a sort of marketplace that, mind you, tech companies want to be positioned in. So yeah, it's maybe it's not happening now, but there's still the expectation that it does become something eventually. And when that happens, you want to make sure that you're ready to have something available. So like going back to Takahashi's article, like that was something that was mentioned, is that PSVR 2 is sort of this, obligation that Sony's doing of like, well, we want to be positioned in this space. So we're doing the headset just so we have it, the core technology's built, and we'll continue to flesh it out. And it's the sort of program that we just want to stay involved in case it becomes something bigger. So is that what PSVR 3 is this sort of compliance device of like, it still might not be the sort of headset that takes over the world, but it's there because they sort of felt the need to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the big question. Is it something they'll continue with? I kind of hope so if they have the idea of making it all in one. But if it's tethered again, I guess it'll look better, like in terms of the visuals, the screens, and perform better with the PS6. But I do think the next step is having their system, their handheld, and their VR headset all separate, but all able to play the same games.
You would probably want the next one to like day one be, I mean, well,
I say play the same games. You're not going to play VR games, obviously. Sorry, on the other stuff, but like same account, same marketplace kind of thing you can shop on.
Well, I mean, like if it's not going to be standalone, right? If it's going to be the same sort, like because PSVR 1 and 2 are very much the sort of like, oh, it's a higher end headset, but it's semi affordable in that it's the console version. So like, yeah, PSVR 2 is expensive, but relative to PC headsets with the required PC, like your all in cost on PlayStation is a lot lower. So it's the sort of mid range headset, and if they stay in that same range, is that a headset that day one? For let's say the third one, it's like, okay, we want to make sure day one, it is tethered to a PS6, but it can go to PC. It's not standalone, but it's this really nice sort of premium wireless headset for PS6 and PC. And is that enough of a sales pitch to just be barely financially viable? And also for studios to make money on it, developers have to be able to make games for these things, and the games are profitable. Is that what makes the most sense? That's maybe what I picture as more likely versus standalone. So we'll see what ends up happening, but that's how I sort of picture it.
Yeah. Or you're right. Is it even worth doing if you're also going to do a handheld that we believe they're looking into right now and attempting to R&D? Because then you have three things you're kind of keeping track of there. Does it still fit in for them?
Yeah. If you do a standalone one, I feel like that complicates matters a bit.
Yeah. So if you tether it, then it's like, okay, we'll make the headset, but don't have to worry about the processor, everything setting up with the battery and stuff correctly. So yeah.
Next up, we have layoffs at PlayStation Studios Visual Arts. So earlier this week, we learned that a number of staff were laid off at Visual Arts, the group that is like a support role at PlayStation. So they do art assets and things like that for various other PS studios. So the one that works out of San Diego, apparently we're hit with some widespread layoffs. We don't know how many, but Kotaku did reach out for comment and Sony did not respond. We did see that Abby Lemaster, who previously worked at PSVA as a project manager, she commented on this over on LinkedIn saying, and I quote here, "It was tough waking up to messages that many friends and former coworkers from PSVA were laid off this morning. The layoffs today hit hard. PSVA let go of developers with decades of subject matter expertise, talent that will be extraordinarily difficult to recoup. This industry can be unpredictable, but the skill, expertise, or experience and passion of the people I worked with at PSVA are undeniable." Shame. This is not good to see. The work is in California, and that's the issue, unfortunately. Hate to make it sound like that, but Sony's going to make cuts like anybody else, obviously.
I think this is just some of the fallout from canceled projects or other things that hit.
You got to figure it's like a direct result, right? If like you've got some PSVA people that were assigned to Blue Point and Ben's projects.
Yeah, I guess because they're going back and I assume they're restarting the pre-production, and it's like, we don't really need you guys now. So.
This is what I was getting at with the Ben thing. It's like with the Days Gone remaster, but it's like they ship that. Now they're going into a brand new thing. You've got a lot of people, 130 something staff that are like not, most of those people won't be able to they won't have anything to work on.
Right.
So it's like, it sucks, but you have to have them do something. So that's how layoffs happen. Like in between, like when a big studio ships a game and there's layoffs. Well, there's layoffs because you can't have all those people do something immediately. So that's like the terrible part. Now, as far as like Sony's business goes, and they've very much said this, which is doing business in California, is expensive. Their games are expensive to make. They've also got they've got that support studio in Malaysia, and it's like the labor is likely a lot cheaper there. And Malaysia, that team's been growing a lot from my understanding. So it could very much be this calculated look at eliminating roles when they have the opportunity to, if they're on the West Coast, and being able to just fill in those gaps when they need to from Malaysia, let's say.
It's interesting because Sony, like PlayStation specifically, I should say, it's been moving more and more as like almost a Western company, a US based company almost. But then they go, oh man, that US labor is expensive. let's move off of this. All right. It is that situation, I think, though, of the cancellations and catching up. And it's unfortunate because you see some like in Japan, for example, a lot of the big thing there for some of those studios is we try to keep people together as much as possible. So the next project is even, I don't say easier, but less chaotic than the last. And it's like, we see this all the time with, especially companies in the US. It's like revolving door at times almost, especially if it's a support studio where maybe you have people who are doing assets, art, things to help out these studios that are calling the shots, but going back into cycles of pre-production, full production, there's a core staff there that's sticking together. But in Sony's mind, that's expensive labor. We don't really need them right now.
Yeah, the games aren't getting cheaper, so
no.
that's
it's more unfortunate they can't find anything for them to do. Like, I don't know. I guess their role is, I guess what's the word they would do? Redundant.
They might have had something to do, but like the sort of slight pessimistic way to look at this is, well, let's eliminate a California role that we can fill in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Like they have that Malaysia studio has grown a lot in recent years.
I mean, Herman Holst has mentioned before about outsourcing.
That's
production.
Yeah, they will look at that stuff to make these games cheaper. When Spider-Man 3 Spider-Man 2 cost $300 million, like something's got to give. Yeah. I hate that it's labor, but like labor is the primary way that labor is the primary cost. It
is.
That's what it is. And when
people wonder about the budgets all the time, cut the budget. Like, people say cut the budgets. Like,
cut the budget.
You're kind of telling them to
fire people.
When you say that, it is tough, right? It's trying to figure this out because a lot of times you go through multiple prototypes and focus group testing that makes you go back almost to square one at a time. Like, man, the development is such a curvy road. It's not like this linear path straight from start to finish. It's a whole thing. And it's like, those budgets can get out of control just because of that. Trying to keep things on the track is tough.
Well, that's the issue with delays, right? Every time like a game is delayed, or rather it comes out and people are like, why didn't they delay it? Like the reason why they want deadlines to be hit is because you can't just keep delaying to get the game right. That makes sense on paper, but the more you delay it, it's just more labor.
That's more cost. Yeah.
You give a team another year, the budget for the game goes up substantially.
So do the expectations, though.
Exactly.
So keep building and building, eventually got to get out the door.
It's not exactly an easy thing to manage, but that's just how it works out. We've got a new class action lawsuit over digital game pricing. This was filed in the Netherlands by the Dutch consumer foundation Massaschade and Consument. The accusation here is that Sony has inflated pricing on the PlayStation Store, and there's no retail competition because digital game vouchers are not sold at third-party retailers anymore. They stopped doing that in 2019. So according to their research, digital games cost on average 47% more than physical versions. The first hearing is expected later this year. If you recall, we've seen similar lawsuits filed in the UK and Portugal. And Sony actually did have something going on in the US as well, but they recently settled this back in December. That was very recent. They paid $7.8 million to about 4 million users as part of a settlement. So they got off.
I got a $1.10 check
pretty,
in the mail.
They got off pretty easy, I would say. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about this? It's true, obviously. It's true.
It's definitely true. All I see right now, though, are just let's be real, law firms lining up, or just firms in general, lawyers, whoever, lining up because they see that it's such an easy thing to argue and get a payout for. And then and then people end up with like what, $1, and the people are actually like facing inflated prices. They'll get the nice little dollar credit to their PlayStation wallet, and it's like, great, okay. No change is going to happen from this. It has to get much more serious than like just regional stuff. Like you have to have like serious regulators, I think, involved that could do like what we see with Apple, where they're trying to bust open their walled garden to where it's like, look, you can't, if you're not going to let other people necessarily onto the platform easily, we're going to make it easier for them to get on the platform and sell their own stores and stuff on your devices. And Google is going through that too. So I think at this point, every one of these lawsuits, while it should, you figure, add up to where we get to that point where Sony has to decide, is it worth not giving up people other outlets to buy digital cards? Which, when we say digital cards, we're not talking about the currency cards. You can still buy that, like the credit for a wallet. We're talking about the full game. If you go in a store now and you look on the rack, you go to even like a Walgreens or something, and you look, and you'll see a bunch of Nintendo cards there right now. So you might see Super Mario Brothers Wonder, and it's a card you take. You pay for it at the register. You go home, you punch the code in, and it gives you Mario Wonder. You don't have to go through, okay, it gave me $60. Now I'm going to buy Mario Wonder. That's kind of the idea, because then the retailer technically one day could be like, I don't like these Nintendo cards. I'm selling them all for half off just to get rid of them. Like there's competition there. Whereas what Sony's doing is keeping that competition at bay by just not allowing them to sell it. And you have to go to PlayStation Store. So it's an easy thing to argue. Like we all see it, but it's also seems to be an easy thing to settle for like nothing for them. Like $8 million for $8 million. And we believe that the prices are inflated. So how much money has that inflated pricing brought in? Much more than $8 million.
Yep. It would be like the EU would have to step in basically, and this would be like regulation where they would impose like some
FTC
sort of
or something. Yeah, you're right. EU, FTC, whoever. EU has gotten a lot done, though. I will say that.
That's the thing. I think it would be the EU. If something happened, it would be the EU. It's like the only country that's the only place it's like shit gets done, and it's imposed on the whatever company is in place that's doing this. You know, that you would see meaningful change. The problem is that like this would also be like highly contingent on like a region by region basis. So even if the EU stepped in, like Sony would just like be compliant in Europe, and that wouldn't necessarily help anybody in like North America, for example. But
how much easier does this case look though if there are no physical games in like a generation or two? Like it's so obvious then. Like they control the market completely. There's nothing to compete against in terms of like back and forth competitive pricing.
Well, they'd probably still make the same arguments that were made during like the Activision FTC case, right? Where you had a lot of witnesses take the stand to explain that the console model, or excuse me, not Activision versus FTC. This was Apple versus Epic. And so you had a lot of witnesses have to take the stand and explain why the console model was different versus, Apple. So they might still be able to lean on that as far as like the 30% cut and what that looks like on console and why it's there on console and why it's fine to have one storefront on those machines versus say iPhone. I'm not sure how much meaningful movement we could see once physical games are like completely gone.
Well, I mean, at that point, there is no competitive market versus their own games. They can, like, no one's selling them. It's just them. They don't want to sell the games.
Well,
if they lock down a game to PlayStation, like they did with, we'll say Stellar Blade, because it took like a year or so for it to start to go to PC. I mean, you buy it from them. That's it. They'll decide when the price changes, and they won't be pushed by maybe a storefront or somebody else selling the game physically.
Mm-hmm.
That, I don't know. That seems super obvious from like a consumer point of, okay, that's a lot of leverage for the platform holder.
Well, the concerning thing is that they've got the kind of money to fight these things tooth and nail as far as they reasonably can.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll lobby their ass off in jurisdictions where they can lobby.
I'll say it now. This is the path to the $80 game.
This is the path, huh?
It's the easy. I mean, it's easiest that it is that sense of what are you going to do? Who else are you going to go buy it from?
It's only store, nowhere to go. That is
Might
why
be past the $90 game, to be honest.
it's like you said though. This is why this is an issue on PlayStation and not Nintendo and Xbox. Is that Sony did stop game vouchers, so you can't buy game vouchers. That's why these things keep popping up. But they're class actions. It's
performative, and it's for the firm or whatever regulatory body, whoever's doing it. It's performative. They get more money than everyone else. Let's just be real.
Yeah, it doesn't do much for you. If you live in the Netherlands though, and you bought a game, you can sign up for your $1, I think. So
hey.
Here's the thing, I wouldn't mind more pressure from this though. Obviously it would be very consumer friendly if like the EU stepped in and maybe did seriously impose some restrictions on how the store operates.
It has to be pressure now, because if we get to a point where they are the only market, we all kind of see it happening in front of us right now, it'll kind of be too late. It's like, that's it. Like once it's established, I don't know how you rewind that.
Yeah, once the toothpaste is out of the bottle there, can't really put it back in, can you?
Nah, they'll feel like they're blessing the audience when there's a 30% sale on a game. I mean, that's how it's gonna be.
Look at all this physical software behind me. Keep buying physical. Keep doing it. It's not too late. We can wind back the clock.
Can we?
We can get the percentages back up if we just try. It won't happen. No,
people don't even like the majority of the games are played on what Fortnite. It's like a physical copy of that.
There is. It's not. Come on now.
The code in a box.
No, there's the original Fortnite disc.
Oh my gosh, what does that even do when you put it in a console anymore?
I was just about to ask. I wonder if you could insert that into a PS4 and that lets you play like the latest build of the game.
That's interesting. Does it like call to the server and download it now or something?
I don't know. It probably installs that. Wait, I don't even know. Does like the Fortnite executable actually let you play what was the original, like the original game? Can you do that?
Fortnite version 1.0, I guess it should be on a. I mean, you said there's a physical copy of it. We should be able to get it on PS4, right?
No, but like if you download Fortnite today, no disc, like can you access that original content? Whatever that because it was single player, wasn't it? There was like
it was like Save the World, yeah.
Yeah, can you do that?
Oh my gosh, dude, Fortnite is expensive on the PS4. What?
Yeah,
wow.
It's a lot.
It's $85 for this game.
Oh, you thought 85 was expensive?
For this game was like $40 when it came out.
Well, I mean, like for like, I don't know, in my head, a rare game like goes over $100 normally.
Wow, look at this. Dude, I did not realize it was like that.
Because it didn't sell a lot. Originally, I should say.
PS4 Pro Enhanced.
PS4 Pro Enhanced.
This is crazy. It mentions nothing about Battle Royale on this. That is so funny. Dude, I kind of want to pick this up. That's like a whole video right there.
There we go. That's a video idea for John.
Dude, that's crazy. It's so funny to look at the back of this box right now. And no mention of Battle Royale anywhere on this. 1 to 4 players online for this game.
That's it? Oh, that's a lot of victory royales right there.
Right?
It's a 25% chance if you're decent.
I mean, I have we'll fire up the PS4, the baseline PS4, pop this disc in.
Nice. You get your jet engine taking off. Get a 747 takeoff for installing Fortnite.
I'll break out the Spider-Man PS4 Pro, I should say. It's PS4 Pro Enhanced.
So we don't know, between you and me, we don't know if you can download the current game without the disc, mind you, and access that original content. Is Save the World on there?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I wish I was a Fortnite head, man. I wish I could tell you. One of my kids all of a sudden started like checking out Fortnite. I played some of the Battle Royale, and it's like there's so many menus to go through in that game now. I don't even know where I am half the time playing that game.
It's got to be gone, right? It's like it has to be. Like, it's got to be gone.
I was spinning in circles, and somehow we still won twice in Battle Royale. I mean, I did take out 18 people though. I will say that I was taking people out.
Wow, John out here, just dad of the year, just
No build mode though. I don't know. I want to see if I see somebody building a fort, I'm quitting.
if
None of that.
If I see a fort in my night, I'm out.
Yeah. Who's having fun over there? Enough of that.
Not a builder, huh?
No build mode.
No little big planet for you, huh?
I am actually like fascinated. This game is like $80 to $100 right now on here. There's one for 90. There's one for $100.
I was about to say, I thought like secondhand copies were over 100. When you said 80,
impressive.
When you said 80, I'm like, what? It went down?
That's impressive.
I thought it was up.
2017 version. Huh. Maybe I might take a swing at it. We'll see.
It might be a Sunday video.
Do you have it? Do you have it back there on the wall of games?
No, I do not have a copy.
Oh, missing a rare PS4 game.
Well, I don't buy them because they're rare. I buy them because I want them. And I don't want Fortnite. I'm sorry. I wrote this down. I feel like we kind of touched on this already. The rumor about a next-gen Xbox for late 2026. Mm-hmm. So this rumor comes from the Ghost of Hope on X. I have no idea if their track record is really that good, but this was good enough for it to make a lot of headlines. So they apparently leak a lot of stuff for like the Call of Duty franchise and first-person shooters. So for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, they claim that the game will have no last-gen support, a traditional UI like the older games. The engine is being overhauled to address MW2 problems. It's being developed on dev kits for the next Xbox, and no Warzone 3 if the original map fails for retaining current and returning players, which you kind of touched on from before. Apparently, they've been making this claim since May of last year as well, and they've doubled down on this, saying that in a separate post they'll this is a hill they'll die on. Is that they've heard this console is indeed coming in late 2026 with Infinity Ward having dev kits in use right now. Yeah. This is not an old rumor, by the way. We definitely had that talk of like an Xbox coming in late 26. And I don't know, maybe you've been following this more than I have, but didn't those rumors kind of die down? Then it was like, no, maybe it will be like more 27. Like what's the roadmap really looking like for Microsoft right now?
I think it is late 26. I actually think we start finding out about this thing. I think they start talking about it potentially at the end of this year.
Well, they did like Sarah Bond went out of their way to talk about it in the was it that original discussion where they announced the 4 games coming to PlayStation? Yep. It was that, but that was where
funny. Fun times.
Because that was like that was the obvious sort of like, yes, 4 games are coming over. By the way, here's another Xbox. We'll talk about it right now. Yeah.
Yep. So they said it's gonna be the biggest technological leap we've seen between generations. That's the move.
Wow. And, that's hard to say.
Well, I think it's going to be more about the OS than anything else. Like I think they put out a standard to spec box of some kind that will show off the features. And the rumor's been for so long they're going to open it up to third parties to make an Xbox.
Right.
And I think a lot of that's going to come down to their OS tying Windows together with it. As weird as that sounds, I think they're going to have like one OS that works across everything. So yeah, Windows and Xbox now, you have an Xbox application. I think they like mash that all together. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting on the PC side as well, because I feel like it'll translate to that with like a better storefront, better performance out of that store and Game Pass and stuff. But I kind of think late 26 is right, and I think you'll see an Xbox, next gen Xbox, I guess, alongside of the next Call of Duty. And I think Sony would be the following year, 27, late 27.
Well, yeah, that's like where the discussion is coming in. Is man, it's getting really weird again, where it's like Microsoft kickstarting another generation a year ahead of Sony, but it's like it's so different in that it's a year head start, but Microsoft is in such a poor position with hardware. And oh, by the way, they're releasing games everywhere. And this idea of what the Xbox looks like is maybe this blurring the lines between home console and PC, and maybe other manufacturers can start making Xboxes. It's so weird as far as like, what would Sony do, or is there any response that needs to be made? I would assume Sony's, line of thinking has not changed. They're still very conservative and will take 7 years. We'll make a PlayStation 6. It'll be called PS6. It'll still be like as we've always known consoles. But, I guess propping that up to what Microsoft is doing, that's where just it gets really weird as far as like how that'll play out.
Yeah, people are thinking maybe late 28, so like holiday 28. I kind of think their 7-year cycle makes sense. Even now with where it was a slower start to the generation for them with the pandemic and like the supply chain being kind of messed up. I just feel like their schedule has been kind of locked in now, especially with we already had Mark Cerny talk about the next system, basically the next plan with AMD, and like that's out there. So it's pretty obvious that the wheels are turning behind the scenes, and it's going to focus more on the software side in terms of AI upscaling, ways to kind of finesse the image up to things maybe like 8K, and then AI most likely being worked into the console too. So I think Sony's aiming for holiday 27. I don't know how that's going to resonate with people, but also keep in mind it's going to be an even longer cross-gen period. Like we don't even have the differentiation between mechanical hard drive and SSD. It's just going to be SSD and SSD. And like that could be a long cross. I don't think the PS5 is going away anytime soon. Even when 27's here and we're talking about, I think the PS5 is going to be an even longer cross-gen. It might be, that thing might roll to 2035, man. It might be crazy.
It's weird. The whole thing's weird. Yeah. It's very weird. For like have this like small window where like Microsoft will ship a box in 26, and it'll be like the best way to play a console game because it's newer hardware. Just by sheer virtue of when it ships, it'll be beefier than a PS5 Pro. So they'll have that name stay for a little bit, but that obviously doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And then a year later, PlayStation 6 comes out.
Yeah.
And then that you would think maybe like does really well, as it likely would do, but I don't know. It sort of complicates things as far as how many boxes Microsoft will ship, and then is that, would that really affect? Probably not, but would it do anything to Sony? I don't know. It's so weird.
I think it's going to be more about the platform that Microsoft will ship with, that OS and that setup across multiple platforms. So I think it will definitely be up to maybe the third parties if they go that route, and how like there'll probably be a $1,200 Xbox as an example. Someone will make it. And I mean, it'll probably be incredible. I think the idea is Microsoft is going to like create the chip. Like what we have right now with AMD for these handhelds, you have like the Z1 Extreme or the Z2 Extreme, and everyone kind of builds around that chipset that AMD developed. And I think that's what you're going to see with Xbox, where Microsoft and AMD are going to come together, make a chip, and then you can play around with the storage or the RAM or the clock speeds or different things that can scale with their OS. And that's going to be the idea. So yeah, somebody might say, you know what, we're making a system that's got RGB lights, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and like it's 2 terabytes of space, 4 terabytes, and it's $1,200. And it's like, okay, I don't want that one, but it's cool that it exists. That's it. There's a baseline spec that Microsoft puts out for like $500 or $600. Some will shoot under that, some will shoot above that. Some make a handheld maybe. I think that's kind of how it's going to be for them. Make less hardware in their mind, which means less cost, but then also be able to sell to a large number of people still with the Switch 2, the PS5, PS6, and then just, I don't know, this crowd of weird looking Xboxes. That's the plan. Yeah. Microsoft software company. They're going to be a software company.
I mean, that's probably their only play they can really do at this point, right? Is just go all in on what the company has historically always done.
Yeah, I think so. I'll be curious to see if it works out for them. I assume they'll make more money because they're spending less on hardware, technically, if they don't have to make 50 million consoles in a generation. They might be happy making 10 million, 15 million maybe consoles, but then letting other people make them and then just selling a ton of software on everyone else's system.
Yeah, that might be the play. Just sort of find not an exit strategy, but an exit strategy of the traditional console market where they feel this pressure to, as you say, ship, 50, 60, 70 million units. Like we don't have to, because we're shipping software at this point.
Do you think 27 feels too soon for a PS6?
I mean, I'm in agreement with like Shuhei on this, where like 28 feels right, but all signs are pointing to 27. Like it's just that's what's gonna happen probably.
28 is I mean it's an 8-year cycle. It's interesting because I remember with the PS3 and the 360, we were like this generation will never end, and it was technically for the PS3 a 7-year cycle. And now we're like, man, this 7-year cycle is just that's too short. We need 8 years now. It's just fun. It's funny. It's part of that diminishing return, right? Where most people are pretty happy with their PS5 hardware. They're talking about the games. I'm like, okay, we want more to play on it from Sony first party. So the PS3 did feel like it was getting kind of long in the tooth there, especially when you try to navigate the store and some of the games were getting kind of choppy on it. Like Last of Us was really cool because it showed what you can do with the first party. Studio really goes for it. But there were some third party games coming out that time where it's like, this thing is going through its paces, putting through its paces right now.
Yeah. Yeah, PS5 is not really seeing that just yet either.
No, I don't feel like it.
No. It's the base console is perfectly playable. You're starting to see some fringe cases, like your 7 Rebirth looking really muddy on the base console, or now Monster Hunter Wilds is sort of looking like another Rebirth situation.
I will say on PS4 Pro, it's actually pretty good. Monster Hunter Wilds. I haven't had too much issue with it.
You mean PS5 Pro?
PS5 Pro, yes. Yeah. Base PS5, good question. I'm not sure. I didn't play on that.
Well, the Digital Foundry footage looks kind of like a Rebirth thing, where it's like, damn, you want 60 FPS, like you can, for the most part, get it, but it's kind of a big difference between that and the Pro version. So there's those fringe cases that pop up occasionally, but we could almost certainly go to 28 and it not be like a massive problem.
No, like that's the thing though. I think the other thing is the PS5 Pro still going to be $700 in 27.
Well, that's why I think it might be similar to PS4 Pro in that like they sell the 15 or so million that they'll sell, and they actually discontinue it. Like they discontinue it ahead of time, so that way it doesn't look weird when you try and sell a PlayStation 6 for, let's say, 700 or maybe possibly even less, if they want to try and like still do the console model of subsidizing it, which is we'll take a loss, but we just want to get them out there, because that would look very weird, obviously. Yeah. But like PS4 Pro, they discontinued like 2019, 2020, maybe like 1 year. I can't remember at this point, but they discontinued it. Base consoles still kept coming out, no problem. Manufactured well into 2022, I think. So that's likely what they'll do.
I could see that. That would make sense.
Well, that about wraps up most of the major news stories. I did have one little thing for PS Productions, which is we do have a confirmed date for The Last of Us HBO Season 2. April 13th.
Exciting stuff. A lot of streaming stuff's been happening, right? Like, a lot of shows have been dropping for me. I'm back. I'm seeing a lot happening right now. I'm happy to see that get dated. But like Daredevil, it's out now. I got to go watch that. Just finished up Cobra Kai.
Oh, did you now?
Very, very good series, good finale. The whole thing, I recommend people check it out. I think it's all on Netflix right now. Yeah, I think so. And there's a series I had never watched before, and I started checking it out, called Resident Alien. Very good.
Resident Alien?
Also on Netflix. Very good series.
I haven't had Netflix in like 2 years now at this point. I
think it's a sci-fi. I think it's on like the Sci-Fi channel, which occasionally Sci-Fi will actually put out every few like years or so. They'll put out a good show and then it's canceled early. And that's it. It's gone for good.
Every few years.
So there was concern that this Resident Alien show might get canceled. Nope, they're starting filming it apparently this year again. So third season though for it. So it's pretty. I recommend that one too. If you have Netflix, you got Cobra Kai, you got Resident Alien, and we're gonna see not on Netflix, but we're gonna see Daredevil. That's back now. So I'm excited for that. And then we got with Last of Us Season 2 coming up. But I'm very curious to see how they navigate that storyline.
Yep, I as well. Very excited to see this. Cannot wait to see how far it goes and if they rearrange things. So
Also kind of curious about the interaction between Abby and Ellie to see how I don't know, they look a little different than I would expect them to from the show, from the game to the show. So I'm curious how they portray them even next to each other, where you would assume Abby should look quite a bit bigger, but she kind of doesn't. Or
Yeah,
the actress.
She did not bulk up. She didn't take the John plan there.
No, but you can do like camera angles and stuff to like, you know what I mean? You can
Sure, make her look just like a more menacing like foe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious how like how she'll be portrayed and portrayed and stuff in that. You know, I'm just curious. So
I'd assume they maybe want to try and humanize her just as much, if not more, than the games. You know, maybe try to lay the seed and groundwork a little bit faster. I think that might be, you know, the sort of surface level analysis of it, but I don't know. I think there's maybe a lot more that they'll attempt, and I cannot wait to see it play out. Genuinely, looks very good.
It's gonna be that situation where we're gonna be like week to week, right, waiting for the next episode.
Oh yeah.
So every Click R3, we're gonna just have a section where we talk about the.
Well, we could.
Should we have should we do that like a Last of Us season 2 section where we talk about the last couple episodes?
Yeah, we like do it near the end of the show, like we're doing right now.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. You want that? You want us to go through and just kind of do a? Although we have to. That's tough though, because you don't want to spoil everything for people. I don't know. That's tough. I guess if you do it at the end, you can tell people, hey, this is where we're going to start talking about Last of Us season 2 spoilers. So we'll see you guys next week or next time.
Yeah, we'll have to do PSX go and give it to you first, and then do that. But okay,
we'll close out with yeah. Or you know what we could do is we could close out with that, end the podcast, but then stay on and just record like 10 or 15 minutes of it, just post it up as a separate video.
That's so whatever works.
So we can kind of separate it. Like I don't want someone driving around and then they're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna go to episode 8 and spoil everything for me, and then they gotta like fight the stereo while they're trying to drive on the high. I'm like picturing the worst case scenario right now in my mind, and like the bridge is closed and they don't see it, and it's like, you know, they're like the rails are going down and like they're about to go off the ramp on the bridge, and it's all because we were going to spoiler season 2 episode 7 of Last of Us.
Well, I mean, clearly, you said it. I wouldn't want that to happen.
No,
got quite the imagination there. Maybe people can let us know what they'd prefer.
Yeah, that's fine. PSX going to give it to you. What you got?
Oh, PSX going to give it to you. The topic of the show where we go through some nostalgic times throughout PlayStation history, talk about something a little bit unique, maybe obscure, just lay down some history for you. John, it was the PS2's 25th anniversary recently. PS2 came out March 4th, 2000 in Japan, so we had to do a PlayStation 2 themed one. I wanted to talk about this. Memory cards, the great memory card shortage of 2000 to 2002. Because that was the thing.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember trying to find one back then because the nice thing back then of the memory card was a double-edged sword. All right. So it was bad in the sense that you did have technically limited space.
Yeah.
It was also bad in that it wasn't saved to the disc like it was saved to the cartridge back in the day. So you didn't have to pair the two together at that time. But it was also good that if you had your own memory card and went over to your friend's house to mooch off of their PS2 and game collection, you technically had everything there, and it was like you never left. You know, no one could mess around with your saves or delete them. So the issue was finding a memory card back then was impossible.
Yep.
Like they weren't around.
So Sony had their own, obviously. They also licensed out to third parties. I think for a lot of people, the situation was you were just looking to find anything. The OEM ones were like just gone for like most of those 2 fucking years. So like a lot of people are getting like the yellow, what was it, Mad Catz ones or Nyko? I think it was
the black little circle there at the front. And that's where you're supposed to, I think, grab it and like
with
it's like
thumb.
grip to pull. Yeah.
Yeah, like
great.
Like it's a big issue, right? Because like for all intents and purposes, you need the memory card. It's just you can't play the damn thing without the memory card.
Well, hold on. I played through most of Final Fantasy VII, just left the PS1 on.
I know. Everyone's got a story where they didn't have the card, so they just had to let it run and just play. For some reason, it was always the longest fucking game period. And like you just said, It couldn't be GTA 3 where it's got like an 8-hour campaign. Had to be the
Nope.
longest thing possible where you left it on. So some people played Final Fantasy X without a memory card. God bless them. I don't know why.
So I remember I would go in, there was a game store near here that I could walk to in the old neighborhood. It's gone now. It's called Game Den or something. Walk up there. It's like a 10-minute walk from my house. And I already had the money for the MSRP memory card at the time. I feel like it was like $25. That sounds right for some reason. But they were way more than that if you spotted them anywhere, because these retailers were they were in on the game. Okay, they knew. But I remember going up there like after school, probably every other day. It was fun to just go up there with a bunch of friends anyway, just to look at the games. And we had like the one rich friend who would always buy a game when they're there. We would just kind of look at them and occasionally trade our stuff in and get ripped off by the shopkeeper. But I remember going up there and looking, and I knew what the memory card package looked like. It was the black memory card, all yellow cardboard around it, plastic, and it would hang up on the shelf. So I could see it immediately when I'd walk in. And finally it was there. Got the $25 ready, right? Sorry, I had like $28.
No.
Some of it was in quarters because we had tax here, right? I go up there. This dude wanted $60 for the thing.
Oh my God, $60?
$60.
Was this like I mean, it wasn't like a big chain retailer, right? It was just some.
No, it was a small time. It was like a basic local store.
Yeah,
and I remember it's like he wants more, because I know it was 60, because I was like, he wants more money than these games for a memory card. Man. So I did what any dumb little kid would do, and I went home and grabbed half my GameCube collection, brought it in, traded in, and got it.
You sold GameCube games to buy a PS2 memory card.
I didn't have a PS2. I had a GameCube.
That was
I wasn't getting it. Yeah, I probably traded in some good stuff too.
Twice the MSRP. Oh man, that's brutal.
But I will say this: I ended up getting him back years and years later, because at GameStop, what would happen if you worked there, you would occasionally penny stuff out. All right. And I can say this now because that was a long time ago and they can't come for me anymore. But they would penny stuff out. And you know what would get pennied out all the time? Strategy guides.
Okay.
So like stacks of these things, right? So I'm going through and we penny them out, which means you're supposed to throw them away. But we put a penny price on them. So I go, okay, I'm going to buy 50 of these strategy guides for 50 cents. And I did. I bought 50 of them.
It's a lot of bucks.
This guy at this store took strategy guides as trade-ins. So I go back there, and maybe it's just like this memory of that happening where I'm like, I got this vendetta in my mind subconsciously without realizing it. I go back there and I see his strategy guides. He's selling them for like $20 a piece for these things, like older ones too. And I got tons I drop them there, right? I'm like, strategy guides, I'm trading them in. This dude gave me $200 for the strategy guides.
Damn, son.
And I cleaned them out of things like Chrono Trigger and Skies of Arcadia on the GameCube and just some of the best stuff. I remember just leaving with some of the best stuff at that time. And I was like, that worked. So yes, I lost initially with the memory card, but I won at the end. I won.
That's actual stonks. A penny.
Yeah.
50 bucks.
Yep.
Damn.
And now they no longer exist. They are not there anymore. They closed down.
Yeah, you bankrupted them by flipping strategy guides on them.
It might have been. I took some good games from them. I know I did. I grabbed some good stuff. So I might have grabbed even that anthology collection on the PS1 for Final Fantasy, I think, and a few others.
That's not quite where I thought that story was going, but I'm very impressed. That was good.
But basically the moral story is, yes, the PS2 memory card was very expensive back then.
if you found them, I mean,
yeah,
I feel like it's very fresh in everybody's head of like, oh, the whole PS5 shortage, can't get a console. Picture a scenario where no, you have the console, you can't save your games. It's just that
it
sort
was a problem.
A very weird thing. Like, and I think if you like grew up during that time, if you had a PS1, PS2, or a GameCube, whatever the case is, everyone has that story of like, you didn't have the memory card for some reason. or you couldn't save your game for some reason. And it was just brutal.
Yeah, it did. It was a couple of years for that generation where you couldn't find it easily. So and then eventually we got to the point where you just have piles of them now. They're everywhere.
Yep. Now they're everywhere.
How many memory cards you got?
Now? Well, yeah. I do those memory card videos, so
you're right. That's why I'm asking.
kind of an unusual amount for one man, I would say.
How many drawers are full of memory cards right now?
I'm sure if I counted, I'm probably at like 50. Between 1 and 2.
Your past self would like punch you in the face right now.
Why would he do that? He'd be pumped. He's like, oh, thank God I can finally save my game.
I didn't say you could give him items through time. I just said he can see you with them.
Oh, so he's just jealous.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd be excited thinking like, oh, all I got to do is grow up another
I finally
years.
made it.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well,
let's get to my mid-30s.
Yeah, that's all.
All the memory cards I could want.
I can finally finish Final Fantasy X.
There it is. There it is. Little did they know you'd be playing Final Fantasy 7 again.
Yeah, well, or saving Final Fantasy X on a mechanical hard drive on PS3. And high definition. High definition. That's it, John. That's all I got for you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in for Click R3, episode 18. Let us know down in the comments if you would like a bi-weekly checkup on the Last of Us stuff. We might be able to do that. 10 minutes or so you know what you're getting into for spoilers. So you're going to want to watch the episodes for them. But let us know down in the comments if you'd like to see that. Otherwise, though, you can check out Ryan down in the comment or down in the description. I got his channel link there. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.